Wow. This is an honor. All right, Zaid, my brother. Mm-mm-mm.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Hey, man. Now, this deserves an introduction. Oh! Wow. We okay. We bringing it out. Mm. Wow. So, uh, uh, okay. All right, man. We need Zai. We need you to give a proper introduction. For our guests joining us, our first hour is dedicated to Amiri Baraka. His birthday just passed, and it's going to be a great hour. Mm. We are rolling.
I could do this
We are
for him
rolling.
now.
We are rolling. We're
We was gonna
rolling
say
and
these were
rolling,
for the
man.
end.
Oh man, no, we appreciate that, right? Like, this hour is dedicated to Amiri Baraka, and his important legacy on so many levels. When it comes to the Black Arts Movement, when it comes to politics inside of the United States, when it comes to the merger between art and politics, and so much more. Zaid, give us a proper introduction, and especially a proper introduction of the person who got us started.
Well, you just heard. You got a taste for those of you who have not heard him before or seen him before. You have just got a taste of the culture worker who I refer to as the army of one of culture, none other than Ngoma,
It's a cultural worker.
poet, multi-instrumentalist, and veteran freedom fighter of long standing with deep roots and struggle that go back to the heyday of Imamo or Amiri Baraka, right?
Right.
Also joining us is someone who was no stranger to these airwaves and who literally came of age as a young man as the Baraka legacy was blowing up here in Newark, and that is none other than Lawrence Hamm, whose African name happens to be
Chunga.
Chunga. It was
Mm.
given to him by Amiri Baraka himself. And we still call him Madimu, you know. But y'all, I'm gonna let you. He gonna tell you his story over here on my left, and it's always correct to be on the left, right? Jackson, an unsung cultural worker and organizer on so many fronts, who also has a rich history with the Amiri, and we're expecting Basir Mchawi, who's on a sister station, as a long-standing veteran of the airwaves, who's on WBAI's Education at the Crossroads, but who goes back to the glory days of the East, a sister organization, the work that Amiri had going on here in Newark, New Jersey. And he had a show that the East had a show called The View from the East that was on WLIB way back in the 70s when he was quite a young man. So we've got some folks to really lift up Amiri's legacy in a way that's going to have a lot of teeth, a lot of substance, a lot of heart, a lot of history, and a lot of analysis and edge, right? So we're looking forward to Basir joining us as soon as he can. Now our co-founder just stepped away, and we need to go. Scroll down, Basir, and you can pop yourself in. He's trying to get him admit himself in.
It says only the host
There
can
you
let me
go.
in.
There you go.
Oh, here I go.
There you go. We already shouted you out.
Yeah, I heard you. I've been sitting here backstage. Quote, backstage.
And our co-founder Ed Riley just jumped off screen. I know he's going to jump back in this conversation. Because one of the reasons why it was important to lift up Amiri Baraka, not just because it's his 90th birthday, and because we're at the crosshairs and the crossroads of some very serious political drama in this country, sitting on the edge of a fascist reality that we haven't seen in some time, but also because just a couple years ago, we actually tried to forge an anniversary conference to lift up the 72 Garrett Convention, in which Amiri was central. And what was he lifting up? He was lifting up the question of the United Front, right? Mm-hmm. So all of those things in mind, we thought it was important to have this conversation. So I know Ed, I'm looking forward to Ed popping back in with his heart, his own. Ed was a child up under all the stuff, over in his neighborhood when he was quite young. So we're looking forward to him popping back in this conversation. Now, Ngoma, Ngoma, I want to thank everybody for Ngoma treating us to what he does, his magic. And Ngoma is considered the godfather of the spoken word to this current generation of artists because he brings so much of the past of our traditions that these young folks just ain't got, right? And they recognize that, and they realize that there's much to learn, there's much to unearth, and there are some very broad shoulders to stand on, and they need to get with that. So he's important with that, right? And in Ngoma, we actually want to the piece that you want to do. We actually want to close out with that.
Oh,
right?
okay.
If you are right with that, right?
I'm all right with that.
What we like to do is let each of you just take turns. Each of you, start off talking about your own relationship with Amiri, how you each of you came to meet and to come to work with him, and then as we build, we talk about the importance of the legacy and why that's so important to appreciate at this particular critical moment. And Ngoma, you already set us off, so why don't you tell your story? And all of your stories are incredibly rich, right? So I'm really glad to have each of you on because also very different. So Ngoma, why don't you start that round robin off?
I'm a Vietnam vet. While I was in Nam, the brothers would send me books, and I read Dr. C.L.R. James's The Black Jacobins, and then that's when I found out about voodoo, and I found out about Ogun. So when I came back from Vietnam, I called myself searching for Ogun. Now this is 19.
Hold up for a second. This is a teaching platform, right? Black Jacobins was the book that we read for generations by C.L.R. James on the Haitian Revolution.
Yeah.
Now I want you to tell everybody who Ogun is. Then you go into your story.
Ogun is a god of justice, and he's also the god of war, and he's also the god of iron. He's usually a blacksmith. Okay. When the Haitians were going to go into battle, what they did was they made an abo, which is an offering to Ogun, and they invoked his power. And that's how they got the power to overcome the French. When I read about that, I said, yo, I want to know more about this Ogun thing. So I came back and I was actually looking for Ogun. But meanwhile, I ran into Amiri. I had a roommate who had gone to the Congress of African Peoples Conference in Atlanta, and he would talk about Amiri, and I was looking at the Panthers, and we would debate which was the way forward. So what finally happened was I said, well, I think, I was very much interested in the arts more so than picking up a gun or something, because that's what I do. And I had made a commitment that I would use whatever skills that I had to raise the consciousness of my people. So I was looking for revolutionary work, and there was Amiri. And I come back from Vietnam, and I came to Newark, and I joined the organization, and I ended up being in the Spirit House Movers, and I ended up doing some tech work with it. I ended up, what else I did? Teaching in the African Free School. Yeah. So that's how we came into, my experience with him. It was very, very enlightening. It's very, I learned a lot because it was the first time I heard people talking about culture being a weapon, and he instilled that. So, so it just put my head on like, okay, you know how to go forward now that you know what you're dealing with.
Now, can you break that down? Like when you say culture is a weapon, what does that even mean? Like how is culture a weapon?
Culture is a weapon because it's a way of life, and depending upon what your way of life is, then you can use it. It may be just the foods and stuff that you eat that other people, those with less melanin might not really be down with that. But better still, it gives people information. If you can give people information, then they can make their own decisions about what they should do. But one of the problems is that we don't have information. The information that we get here is just so crazy. You got to listen to Trump's bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? And there's so much more that you could do when you find out the truth about different items. Even if you're talking about religion, if you're talking about, once you find out the truth, then you can move forward. So that's how culture works.
And we'll just add, just to put a footnote to that. You know, Amiri was greatly influenced at that stage of his life by Malcolm and by Amir Cabral, and that language and that wisdom comes from the great Amir Cabral, who led Guinea-Bissau to independence. Right.
Yeah, right.
So let's go on around the room. Miss Madam Mae Jackson, can I poem with you? One of the many years ago, and was a co-founder of the Third World Women's Alliance, right? Some powerful stuff, straight out of Nick, right? And put in a whole lot of work, a whole lot of years, right? May, how did you come in contact with the committee? What did all that mean to you?
I don't remember how, but I remember, like, when you mention his name, the first thing that comes to mind is the day cannot save them and we own the night. And that just goes around in my head. But I do know that during the early days of SNCC, I used to go over to the Spirit House. And of course, during that time, there was conflict between the cultural nationalists and the revolutionary. And so whenever I would leave on the office on Friday, they said, she's going over to America. He was Leroy Jones at the time. And that's where I was headed. And that's where I stayed. I was over there almost every weekend. And I loved Amiri. He was my hero. And I miss him a lot. I miss that voice, that sense of humor, that's pushing you to the edge, making you think. You can go up and down, but he always made you feel something whenever you walked into the Spirit House. And I think one thing that I remember, we were at the Spirit House and we were dancing and having a good time, and Amiri was not around. And then the lights went out, and we heard all of this pounding on the door, and it was niggas, 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 and we heard them come up the stairs, and the lights came on, and it was some brothers in blackface, and we looked around. We said, "This is not funny," and we left after that. That was the end of the party because we were having a good time. And Amiri always talked about that, being cautious, knowing where you are, and never being caught off guard. But when you're 18 or 19, it's easy to be caught off guard, and that's where we were. But that was when the lights came on. Those who had on the police suits had white faces painted. It was quite a sight, and quite
a theatric security, some theatric security training. Huh?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, damn, I feel like partying now, and I got to go back to Brooklyn.
What a story! What a story! Well, we go come back to some of that for sure. David, why don't you tell us your story? You got a great story, and you probably the youngest out of everybody on this particular call, or the youngest probably back then, right? And then that's an important story for the generation, to be sure. Go ahead, jump on in.
Well, the first thing I want to say, I'm glad to see everybody. I'm especially glad to see brother Ngoma. And Ngoma, I want you to know I had one of your CDs, and one of my favorite songs on your CD. And I'm glad you said this because, they say I'm the youngest. Well, I'm 70, gonna be 71 in December. So I need verification on stuff sometime, But on your album, you had a cut about your experience in Vietnam. Is that right? No. Because I think you made references to that. But anyway, that song that I'm thinking of, that cut that I'm thinking of, that was my favorite. I used to just play that cut over and over again. But anyway, I was a student.
What was the cut?
I can't remember the title, but I swear, it's like it sounded like you were talking about your experience in Nam. You know, some of the
Okay, I take that
the
back.
references.
I did.
You know,
I did put that on the album.
oh, you remember? Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So I help verify you now, right?
yeah, right. I'm 79. So.
All right.
All right.
Well, anyway, my connection to Amiri Baraka began actually in 1970. And 1970 was significant, a benchmark year, because Ken Gibson was elected mayor, the first African-American mayor in the 300-year history of the city of Newark. But I didn't really play a role in that. I had not quite come into political consciousness. I went to Arts High School, and Amiri Baraka had several headquarters in Newark. And one of those was the Hekalu Umoja, which translated from Swahili, right, is the House of Unity, but it was popularly known as 502 High Street. And right next to 502 High Street, Hekalu Umoja, was Nyumba ya Ujamaa, which was the bookstore. So for me to get to school, his headquarters was literally the block before Arts High. So I had to walk by that headquarters all the time. And they had loudspeaker on the outside. And, you know, I went to Arts High School where they didn't teach us hardly any Black culture. You know, you go on Arts High, you see the white nymphs painted on the wall. And, you know, so they would be playing on the loudspeaker. They'd be playing John Coltrane, The Love Supreme. They'd be playing Pharaoh Sanders and Leon Thomas. And that music sounded otherworldly, man. You know, I was like, wow, who are these people? You know, and then one day in 1970, there was a teacher strike. There were two teacher strikes in Newark. One was 1970. The second one, which was the longest one, was 1971. And, you know, there was excitement in the school because everybody was whispering that Leroy Jones was coming. And, you know, the way people were whispering and talking, you would have thought that this person was like, you know, 20 feet tall, you know, a giant, you know, like, because the whole school was kind of in an uproar. And what they did was that they called the student council. They wouldn't let him address the entire student body. They called the student council members down to the classroom on the first floor. It was B13. That was the number on that classroom. And we were sitting in there and we were all waiting. And then this brother comes in. Now he had two giants with him, but he himself was not, you know, the way people were talking, you would have thought that this brother was going to come in there and tear up the whole school. But he had two very big brothers with him. I guess they were his security. And then he came in. And then I'm speaking now as like a 17-year-old, you know, people talk about we wore dashiki. He had an African coat. You remember that coat he used to wear in Ngoma? He had an African coat. He had on shoes that I believe were made from elephant hide, you know, and I never heard anybody talk like him. He talked to us for probably about 45 minutes to an hour, a whole class period. He talked to us about the need for us to be active in the Black liberation movement, for us as students to be active. You know, he was telling us about Newark history. So fast forward, the following year, 1971, there was another teacher strike, and we had a walkout. And I was the head of the student government at that time. We led a walkout from Arts High School, and we went in and sat in at the Gateway Hotel right across the street from Penn Station. That hotel is still there, but it's called the Doubletree Hotel now. And that's when I met Gibson for the first time. And after that encounter, 2 months later, Ken Gibson appointed me to the Newark Board of Education at the age of 17. I was the youngest school board member in the country. And then a month after that, I was appointed on July 1st, 1971. About a month after that, in Ngoma, you remember Majadi, Cheo Majadi?
Yeah.
Majadi came downtown. I had a little office in the board building when it was on Green Street. It's the police building now, but it used to be the Board of Education building. And Majadi said, Imam will want to meet with you. So I said, all right, let's meet, you know. He came there just like that. He said, Mama want to meet with you. I said, all right, let's go, you know. And we went up to 502 Hikalu Umoja. And man, that was an experience, you know. I hate to use these terrible analogies, but in a way it was like I was off to see the Wizard of Oz, you know, because you remember how the Hikalu was, the artwork that was in the building, the murals that had been like the reliefs that had been carved into the walls, the painting, the pictures, the giant portraits of the great African leaders in the. I was 17 years old. I had never experienced anything like this, you know. And then finally, I got up. I had to go through security 3 times on the first level, the second level, and Imamu's office was on the 3rd level. And that's when we met. You know, when the door opened, I didn't know what to expect, but the brother was like friendly. He wasn't full of himself. He wasn't like, I'm the great black leader and all of that. You know, it was totally the opposite of what I expected. You know, we shook hands and we talked. And from that point on, you know, we became fast friends. And he was certainly, because when I was on the school board, it was a stormy, it was a stormy experience, brother. And I always could count on the brothers and sisters from C-Fund, was the Committee for a Unified North, which was part of Congress faculty. I could always depend on them to come down and defend whatever it is, whatever I was doing. And you remember in Ngoma, the Black Liberation Flag controversy? Amiri was in Tanzania, I think, when that, he said he heard about it in Tanzania. But for a lot of those things, you know, I was catching a lot of hell, but he was always supportive. But that's, you know, I never got to meet Malcolm. I never got to meet Dr. King. So Amiri Baraka was like a transmission belt for me. I mean, he was the one that introduced me to those ideas. The whole question of revolution, that came to me through Amiri Baraka. The whole question of Black nationalism, that we should control our community, the whole question of Pan-Africanism, that it's a worldwide movement, and then the whole question of scientific socialism. It was really Amiri Baraka that introduced me to those ideas. I mean, how could you read, you know, Kwame Nkrumah, Neo-Colonialism, High Stage of Imperialism, Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare? How could you read Cabral, or any of the other African revolutionary leaders and not come to the question of socialism? And, you know, in Ngoma, Amiri made that transition from Black nationalism to Marxism, Leninism, and that's a whole nother story. But these ideas, right, these ideas about the need to change society, to make a fundamental revolutionary change, I got those ideas from him. He fundamentally shaped my political outlook and influence to this day. And last thing I just say is my second grandson was born this week on Amiri's birthday. October 7th. Yeah. My grandson Kai was just born on Monday, October 7th, so which is Amiri's birthday.
Take a beat, Grandpa, because I just want you to fill in 2 blanks. Remember, this is a teaching platform. Both of you have already, all three of you have lifted up C-Fund and Congress of African Peoples. Just in a few sentences, just sum up for everybody just who C-Fund was and who the Congress of African People was. And then we're going to go to Basir.
I yield to Ngoma because he was in the organization.
C-Fund was the Committee for a Unified Newark. It got started from, I think, the Black Brothers that had their headquarters not at 502 High Street, but in the actual Spirit House.
Right.
Which was, yeah. And Baraka started his organization. When I came into it, they were practicing Kawaida, which was, through Maulana, and then that kind of like, he didn't think that was going to take us forward.
Yeah.
And he switched over to Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, which was very interesting. I didn't leave because of that, but I left around that time, so I can't give you the history past that. Oh, I take that back. When I came back to New York, we had a theater group that we did Baraka's plays.
In Bed-Stuy.
History of Universal. No. I'm trying to remember what the play was that we did.
Look, did you do?
I can't think of it. We're talking.
Did you do What is the Long Ranger to the Means of Production?
That is what I did, indeed. Thank you. I did.
Help it fill in the blanks.
It was Anti-Imperialist Cultural Union. That's what.
All right. Basir, jump on in and help fill in the blanks.
Yeah, well, let me go back because
go ahead.
One of the things that we have to say about Baba Amiri is one of the reasons why he liked James Baldwin so much, and actually at James Baldwin's funeral did the eulogy, is because he was our generation's James Baldwin. When you look at the brother, you got to look at his poetry. Got to look at his plays. He plays like the Dutchman, plays later on like we're talking about What is the Long Ranger to the Means of Production?
Yeah.
Fiction. I mean, all different kinds of things, whether it's short stories, novel, I mean, really important stuff. And then, of course, his essays are nonfiction. You got stuff like Blues People, which is... one of the foundational texts in regards to folks understanding some things about our music. So when we look at Baba Amiri, we got to look at him with that same kind of lens we look at James Baldwin. People are looking at James Baldwin in regards to his 100th, the centenary of James Baldwin. We're not there yet with Baba Amiri. But one of the things that we have to say is because of his politics and his ability to organize, he's not viewed in that same fashion as a Baldwin is. And, that's something that we have to go ahead and address.
Yes.
Now, I met Amiri first early on because, I came out of high school, myself and this whole crew, we were reading all different kinds. We were reading Baldwin. We were reading Chester Himes. And lo and behold, we got a hold of this piece of poetry, The Dead Lecturer, which is Amiri's poetry piece, which is kind of making his transition into what we would have to say is overt nationalism. And, he's in this particular transitionary phase. And it was interesting because I ended up going to college did undergraduate work at New York University. So I'm down in the village, right? And one of the interesting things is, I started writing poetry and, was traveling around, downtown, and some of the schools for that matter, the whole, I guess you would have to say, the kind of like the poetry theater thing or whatever, right? And lo and behold, about 1966, 1967, had an opportunity at Columbia University to read with Amiri Baraka.
Mm.
Later on at NYU, as we did this student organizing, and this is very interesting because I'm doing this archival work and I had all these reel-to-reel tapes that I just had digitized. I have a tape of Amiri speaking at New York University in like 1968, 1969,
Wow.
where he's talking about Black politics, okay, and what is our responsibility in regards to Black politics. So despite the fact that Amiri was this creative person, he also had this ability to organize and was able to pull people from various stratas of our community, from various classes in our community together to actually do work together. There are a few
Please,
people who can
please,
go ahead and
Philip.
do that.
Yes.
You know, one of the folks who could do that over in Brooklyn was Abubadika Sonny Carson.
Yes.
You know, Abubadika was able to go ahead and work with anybody and everybody, no matter what your level was, no matter how much money you had, no matter where you came from. Abubadika could do that. Now, I think Amiri was similar because he could talk and communicate with everybody. But
Yeah.
Amiri was able to go ahead and begin to try to build structures that would be more national in character. So we can talk about the National Black Assembly, you know, which is something that we have to revisit because if you look at the documents that came out of the National Black Assembly, they talk about the Democrats and the Republicans have failed us. And here we are, of course, in 2024, and it's very clear that the Democrats and the Republicans both have failed us.
Failed us.
Okay. Later from that comes the Congress of African People, which is a more obviously African-centered national organization. And between those two things, there was also, and this is very important, the African Liberation Support Committee.
How about that?
Because the ALSC was the time where African people in the diaspora had direct impact on the liberation struggles that were taking place on the continent.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We had more sway and more say, more power and influence in those times than we do now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that we learned from Amiri is that it's important on the political level to see how we can go ahead and build mass grassroots organizations that speak to our people. You know, one of the things that I think Amiri kind of regretted, and we had conversations because I had the opportunity to interview and have conversations with Amiri in the 70s, in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s. You know, I've got, you know, radio conversations that we've had. And one of the last conversations I had with him is, you know, we talked about some of the moves that he had made in regards to prematurely, I guess we would have to say, trying to move the nationalist community into something that was going to be Marxist and Leninist Mao Zedong thought. All right. There were aspects of that that we could go ahead and relate to and understand, but to go ahead and attempt to try to build a cadre organization, which was Amiri's vision, was something that was really premature. And I think as he moved along and saw how he was going to be treated in the society without the backing of these national grassroots organizations, I think it's something that kind of really bothered him later on. But, you know, one of the things that we have to say about him is, as I said, you know, he is our James Baldwin in regards to his output as an artist, but at the same time, he was able to do these amazing organizational things, which still we have to learn from today in this particular period, especially because, you know, here we are getting ready to go into another election. And obviously, none of the forces that are out there speak to us, speak for us. Whether we talk about Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Jill Stein, Cornel West, who I think is a clown. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's time for us to really go ahead and learn from those particular experiences that in instances very clearly were spearheaded by Amiri. Because if not for Amiri, that National Black Assembly could not have gone ahead and pulled together all of these disparate forces that actually were able to come together. That is a model very clearly. Somebody like Kamosi Woodard would be able to really talk about the National Black Assembly and the Congress of African People in a lot more detail even than I can. But again, from my perspective, I think it's important that we raise up Amiri not only as this political thinker, political organizer, but as the consummate artist that he really, really was.
Mm-hmm. And Kamosi was supposed to join us, but he had a previous engagement and couldn't get out of it. So he's been on the show before. We definitely got to figure out how to get him back on here, right? One of the things, and I just want to build on this and just point to some really hard questions as to where we're at now, right? Each of you lifted up, the challenges of this moment in your intro remarks. But the thing that there was a divisive issue that emerged in '72, and that issue was the question of Palestinian solidarity back in '72. And here we are now, with Trump looking to bite us all in the behind, right? Gaza is a slaughterhouse, right? And the Israeli military forces are now doing their dirt in Lebanon, and there's a real divide amongst the so-called black electorate about how to deal with this. What are your thoughts on that? And Basir, you kind of gave us a good taste of yours.
Well,
But
I mean, the issue is
jump in on some of that.
Yeah, I mean, the people have spoken. People, once again, even if we talk about the grassroots, I mean, they see what's taking place in Gaza, and they can relate to experiences that they've had themselves. They can relate to those who are familiar with history. They can see Tulsa, Oklahoma. They can see Rosewood, Florida. They can see Move in Philadelphia. So they've seen these particular things. And when they see what's taking place in Gaza, there's this visceral reaction. Now, of course, one of the things is you can't see it because the Zionists have shut down. They've killed over 100 journalists. They've shut down the Al Jazeera office in Tel Aviv, saying, of course, it's Zionist propaganda. No, rather, it's pro-Palestinian propaganda. So you can't see that. One of the issues that, interestingly enough, Ta-Nehisi Coates is raising is where is the Palestinian perspective in regards to the corporate media?
Mm-hmm.
It's not there.
The Palestinians, not just there, but if you look at the Democratic National Convention, there was the struggle about whether a Palestinian would be able to speak. And that was shut down. But this is nothing new, because even prior to October 7th, you had supporters of Zionists, elected officials like this punk Richie Torres, who happens to be my congressperson now, due to gerrymandering that the Democrats did. All right. He outed a Palestinian sister who was elected to speak for the graduating class at the NYU Law School. And she spoke as a Palestinian should. And she was called out by first Richie Torres, then articles appeared in the New York Post, then people in Congress started talking about this. And lo and behold, she lost her job. She probably had to go underground because she was outed. Her name was there and everything else. But when we see how evil, for instance, if I was to say that Zionists control the media, people would immediately say that was anti-Semitic. But if you see the reality, there is no Palestinian perspective anywhere in the corporate media
At all.
So whether or not Zionists control it, they control it, because that's the only way we can explain the absence of an alternative perspective in the corporate media, because as we see, it does not exist. It's not there.
So to everybody, given that reality, given that contradiction, given the players that we have on the field right now, right? Which way forward? What are we to do? Are we?
Well, if I could jump in
Mhm.
on that, let me just say first of all that the first inkling I was given of the Palestinian struggle, I actually didn't get through the Committee for a Unified Newark. It came before my contact with Amiri Baraka, and that was through the Black Panther Party. Because in Newark, there were many different political formations, Black political formation. And there was a chapter of the Black Panther Party, and a young man that went to my high school was a member of the Newark chapter of the Black Panther Party. And he actually came to school with a keffiyeh on, right? That's the shawl, that black and white shawl. Is that right, y'all?
In different colors.
Yes.
Yeah. In 1968, he came to school with a keffiyeh on. And I was like, Henry, what is that? And then he began to explain the situation to me in Palestine. And I have to say, being one, I can't say that I was raised in the church, but, I was one that attended church and everything. It was incongruous with what, my whatever religious teachings I had received. The next time the issue came up with me directly, I was an elected delegate to the National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana. And I think others on this panel were also in Gary. I was 18 years old. I might have been the youngest elected delegate at Gary in 1972. And I can remember it was the plenary session. It was the day before the last day of the convention. And we were voting to approve the platforms that would become known as the National Black Political Agenda. And we were going through the platform section by section, and we got to the international section. And it was going pretty smoothly up until that point. And then we got to this one paragraph. It might have been one long sentence, paragraph. The National Black Assembly supports self-determination for the Palestinian people. It didn't even say like National Black Assembly supports the PLO or any of it. Was like self-determination of Palestinian people. There were all 50 states were represented at the convention, and up in the balcony was the delegation from, well, there were a number of delegations that, because the whole house was full at the high school where the convention was held. And the Michigan delegation was up in the balcony. And the chair of the Michigan delegation came to the mic, and he said, the microphone, he said, if the convention approves this platform plank, he was going to take his delegation out of the convention. And that leader of the state delegation from Michigan was Coleman Young. He was not yet the mayor. He would go on later to become the mayor of Detroit, but he wasn't the mayor of Detroit at that point. But he was the leader of the Michigan delegation. Pandemonium broke out. And I think the only one who was able to pull that session back together was Amiri Baraka. He was chairing. He was chairing that section. And he finally got the convention to vote, because you had to put the thing back together to even get us to vote. And we did, the majority of the convention delegates did approve the platform plank on self-determination for the Palestinian people. And that was the headline in the New York Times the next day. Coleman Young did take the Michigan delegation out. Now, there were brothers and sisters in the Michigan delegation who did not want to walk out, but I don't think they were the majority. Some of them did stay behind, and some came to the mic, at least one came to the mic to make it clear that the walkout was not everybody's position, that there were people in the Michigan delegation that weren't. But that's one of the foremost memories I have of Gary that day when we had to vote on that question of self-determination for the Palestinian
Now
people.
let's fast forward.
Right.
Michigan is very different now. Michigan, on the question of Palestinian solidarity and having a very diverse and very large Muslim community, is very different now, right? And Michigan has been out the uncommitted movement that we see now in electoral space. You got to comment on that.
Well, I think Basir, made a critical point here. The majority of people, there have been polls taken in the last few weeks. The majority of Americans want a ceasefire. More than that, the majority of Americans, according to the polls, want to see arms embargo against Israel. They want us to stop selling arms because most people are clear that war of genocide and extermination that's being waged by the apartheid state of Israel against the Palestinian people is made possible through the military aid provided by the United States. That we're not bystanders, we are in essence partners to genocide. And I think we have a clear situation here with a contradiction between the Democratic Party leadership and the masses of people that vote Democratic, is very clear for all to see, because even though everybody knows that the majority of people want a ceasefire and want us to stop sending arms to Israel, the Biden-Harris administration is going forward. And I think, and there was another poll taken too, that showed that if Harris was to come out for an arms embargo, it would increase her support. And in this razor-thin competition now between the two parties, she needs all the support she can get. But they jumping off, they hand in hand with Israel, and they jumping off the cliff now, because now Netanyahu is making this a regional war. They're not just bombing Gaza, they bombing Yemen, they bombing Syria, they bombing Lebanon, they bombing the West Bank, and this thing could lead possibly to world war. And it's just it just shows the predicament that we're in. And Basir touched on something earlier that I think was really important. He said Amiri was struggling to try to build national organizations. And that struggle is still going on, where we're struggling to try and build national organizations that can really have an impact on the political situation. And I think that task is not finished yet. We were closer, I think, in 1972, like you said, for African Liberation Day than we are right now.
May, you want to comment? Ed, I know you want to jump in here because you've been quiet, and we worked hard trying to pull together the anniversary conference a couple years ago.
Well,
yes, ma'am. Thinking
about Amiri, I also think about Sonny Carson, because the two of them worked together very well. And then I was involved in SNCC, where there were a lot of Jewish people. So I was always sort of in the middle of all of this. but I learned so much from Sonny Carson and from Amiri, and I followed them, even though I was in SNCC. And Rap Brown was also closer to that political stance than most people in SNCC. So even though I worked in SNCC, my politics were more with Newark and with Sonny Carson because they were out in the streets doing the work and talking to people. It was not SNCC. I have a lot of respect and all of that, but it did not appeal to the masses of people. Whereas Amiri could just mesmerize. You come in, and by the time that he has read one poem, you were ready to fight or to do something, but certainly not to just sit there.
Yes,
Um, yeah, and I think I miss that a lot. I miss the voice. I miss the politics that were so sharp, and I also miss being around a lot of brothers who would stand up. They didn't give a damn about cops, billy clubs, whatever they had. I saw brothers just stand toe to toe to them, and for me, um, it was very moving. I knew that I would be afraid, but I would never let anyone abuse me without fighting back. And I got that from Amiri. I got it from rap uh, a lot, and I also got a lot of harassment because I believed in that. They would call me a cultural nationalist because I was always quoting Amiri. But so when Kwame talked about Black Power, he opened the gate for us to come out and to speak and say, I think we can do this. We don't need all of the other stuff. I don't know if any of you had the experience of working with Jim Foreman.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Um, Jim tried to, I don't know, I guess, have us all together. I don't know, but whatever it was, it didn't work, and there was a lot of frustration. I have a lot of respect for Jim and all the things that he endured. He was a great leader, but for many of us, it was rap, it was Amiri, and it was Kwame.
There's a great picture of the three of them together at Amiri's house. That's a classic photo that a lot of us use from time to time to lift up their legacy. Now we're up against the clock. I know Ngoma wants to get a piece off, right? And we've got a ritual question we want to ask each of you. But before we even go there, Ed, you've been too quiet. What's up? You grew up. You was a cute child in the neighborhood up under all this stuff. You got to
Yeah,
tell that story and
that's
bring it in.
true. Yeah, I lived right across the street. I lived on at 40 Sterling Street,
Oh,
right across the street from the Spirit House. So I
yeah.
was really young though. I was a super simper, and so I pretty much played with Amiri's
Wait,
children.
tell everybody what that is, because your
Well,
folks don't know what it is.
it was like a boot dancer. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
we got our training, based around the culture, based around the kawaii, and we had regular classes every Saturday. We would go to those classes up on, where Rock's restaurant is. That there used to be another building that Amiri had up there. You remember that, Demo? He had another location up on Norfolk Street.
On Norfolk, was that African Free School?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had classes up there on Saturday, and so I grew up playing with his daughters, playing house with Vera and Wanda, and and so, Amiri, you know, I somebody wanted to chime in.
Finish your thought.
I can remember, one summer, Zaid. I don't know if I ever told anybody this, but I can remember one summer, Amiri coming in the middle of the street because they used to close Sterling Street off in the summer so the kids could come out and play in the middle of the street. And I can remember one summer he came out and asked all the kids to come out, and he was giving out African names. And he gave me a name. I don't know if I ever told anybody this, but it was called a Hulu. A Hulu means great warrior, and that was the name he gave me. And I used to tell him that every time he came to the studio, and naturally he didn't remember that. I was a child, but he was like, "Yeah, I remember." I used to
have a whole lot of names too. So a whole
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah. But that's my memory. But one of the things I wanted to pick up on that you were talking about, Larry. The problem is that the whole concept around trying to build this national organization, or even trying to take the concept that Amiri had, unity without uniformity. The problem is today, Black people don't want real leadership, or at least they don't want Black leadership, right? Because they don't want to be told what to do. It is based around that whole Black Lives Matter concept, where everybody's a leader. And so it just looks, because remember the last bastion of that was really the Nation of Islam. What other organization has that kind of leadership structure where you have a leader like Minister Farrakhan, right? Where's that at today? Right? So we don't really want that kind of organization. We're willing more so to follow political leadership now than we are to follow conscious leadership, Black leadership. Right? Because we don't even remember Malcolm had that whole concept where he said that the revolution must be financed. Black people don't want to finance organizations. They much less don't even want to give 10% to the church anymore. So, those are some of the problems that we're having, in terms of trying to do that. Because remember, one of the most successful organizations in this country, just based around their intake with money, was Black Lives Matter. But you saw the level of corruption with all of that money. because all of the organizations underneath them didn't really get funded. But the top organizations, right, they got tens of millions of dollars. And they never sent that money down to the real organizers. And so that concept that Amiri had based around that is an idea that I think has not died. Black people need leadership, but the problem is that we don't want to follow leadership. People want to be the leaders. Everybody want to be the leader. They have a problem with leadership. That's why leadership tend to be more religious than anything, because it's easier for people to follow religious leadership than it is for people to follow conscious leadership.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, the only thing I would say in regards to that is that charismatic individual leadership doesn't work for us. Because all you have to do is remove that charismatic.
Right. You're saying something I can't hear you.
All right. So what we have to do is we have to see how we can, literally build organizations that have collective.
I was going to say, I think that for me, the understanding of aesthetic education, what aesthetics is, the reason why I asked about what does it mean that culture is a weapon, and I think he taught that culture was a weapon, whether or not you think it is or not, because unless you're welding it as a weapon, it's being used against you as a weapon, right? There's always a battle for it. My fiance is reading the Bluest Eye again, right? It was one of my favorite novels, And it seems like that the writers of that time understood like the depth in which we're dominated by culture, and that and dominated in ways that make us hate ourselves based on culture that we don't question, that we don't push. So I think that when you're talking about like certain types of leadership, what people, the way in which we function, I think a lot of it comes down to the reason for the Black Power movement to begin with, the reason why cultural education was something that was needed, right? And in the end, the reason why you have to have culture as a weapon is really just recognizing what it actually is, right? It's really recognizing the ways in which if you go into a church and you see white images of Jesus, those aren't neutral concepts. That's not something that is uh, that's not something that's neutral in any way. That's something that is absolutely destructive in most ways, right? And so I think that that concept, right, is the whole idea of a Black arts movement and a Black power movement, and even the pushback when, and I thought this was powerful, when he left Black nationalism and went into third world Marxism because he recognized that identity politics would get you sold out, that there are many people who are Black who can appropriate the culture enough to game it for personal advancement, right? So you could, and I know that his fallout with Gibson is something that should always be studied, right? Like the way in which it was Black nationalism that pushed Gibson into office, and the controversy of him hiring a white police chief and seemingly betraying, or at least the story goes, right, betraying the movement that put him in to make deals with a Black middle class and a white working class that that really betrayed a Black working class, right, and Black poor people, right? Like, so I think that the way in which I think that his experience and that journey, right, that journey from beat poet, right, to uh, to Black nationalist, to third world Marxist, right, to someone who engaged in the electoral college system, right, or into electoral politics and wanted to organize around electoral politics. That's something that has to be studied, right? Because like when many people right now are talking about, oh, I'm not voting for one or another, I'm sitting this out, right? And then to think of the ways in which he's like, no, like we need to actually engage, and that politics is multiple levels, that you always need to challenge, but you always need to understand the ballot as power where it is. It was just real nuanced, right? And I love his evolution, and the way in which the way his thinking, right, mirrored the problems that we were encountering. And I really do think that the evolution of his thought should be studied uh, by everyone in the United States and around the world, because it's an introduction to politics, it's an introduction to culture, it's an introduction to the power of aesthetics, right, and how aesthetics infuses itself into culture, into education, into empowerment, and it can be seen so much in so much of the literature and the reality, and the literature that reflects the reality that we live
So saith education legend Jonathan Austin. Mouthful, not mouthful. And what you didn't say, Jonathan, usually you the one that check us. That we up against the clock. And we need more time.
in.
All
Ooh,
right.
yeah, true. I do usually check when we're up against the clock, and I totally, I don't even have my 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 phone is in my pocket, right? Like I'm just all comfortable out here with the trees, chilling, and all of a sudden I'm all relaxed and laid back. Look, we way behind time. We got our next guest in the back right now, and been waiting patiently. And Zion, I don't know why you did not end this conversation earlier and let me talk on so long.
We always overflow.
Congratulations, Jonathan, on your recent marriage.
Well,
Congratulations.
engagement. We'll be
Yeah,
getting married
engagement.
shortly.
It's coming
We'll
up.
be getting married shortly. It's coming up. Shout out to Ashley Renee, the most beautiful woman on the planet.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to that. We're all very happy for you.
Incredibly intelligent, cool, stylish. Yo, man, like everything that's improved about me is because of her.
Right on, all
Right on.
Ngoma, you want to do your piece? Then we got to ask everybody the ritual question. You muted, Ngoma. And coming up on the screen is our next guest, who's been waiting patiently, and she's a force of one in her own right. And we're looking forward to our conversation with her. Ngoma, you're muted. You're muted, Ngoma.
I got
there
it.
you
Hello?
go. Okay.
This kind of music, do I have time for that, or should I just do the poem?
Jonathan, it's your call.
I can't hear you
mean,
now.
Do the you could do the music and poem, but can you hear us? Not
hello.
Zayed, can you hear me?
He can't.
Okay. All right, we can hear you now.
Now the question is, this got music. Do I have time for that, or should I just do the poem?
Do the poem. Do the poem in the interest of time.
All right. Cool. This poem is called One Last Poem for Amiri B. Daughter hit me with the text saying Amiri B had left the building. I'm still trying to find words to express my funk. The pain was like having teeth ripped out with no anesthesia, leaving a hole that has no filling. Amiri was like another father to me. He named me Ngoma back in 71. I've been trying to live up to the attribute ever since. There's a pledge we took that's still tattooed to my consciousness. We are sworn African revolutionaries. We will make revolution or die. I've been soldiering since then. He taught us that culture is a weapon, so I stay strapped, fully loaded, slinging stones at Goliath, swinging my axe, trying to knock down the walls of Jericho. But this poem ain't about me. This poem is about the master teacher, the legacy he left, and the record that he set. It's about recognizing the fact that the truth will set you free. So the fact remains we're still at war and the battle ain't over. To see the way forward, remember the concept of Sankofa. Go back to old-time religions. Return to your ancestors' visions. Go to the crossroads and pray for a Legba to open the way. Just don't forget, freedom ain't free, and Kazi, work, is the blackest of all. Now I realize this poem is sloganized, plagiarized, and cliche, but the last thing I want to say is, don't mourn, organize.
Ashe. As we wind up, Jonathan, you want to ask everybody the ritual question?
Who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
Go ahead. No,
Who's your and this is just like give us a real quick answer. Who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
Dead Prez.
Now Kendrick Lamar.
Right. May?
Yeah, he's pretty dope.
Basir?
Yeah, I said Kendrick Lamar now.
All right, May?
She's muted.
May, who's your favorite hip hop artist?
Kendrick Lamar.
Okay, Kendrick. All right. Kendrick Lamar and Tupac. All right. Basir?
He said Kendrick.
Okay, Basir, you said Kendrick. All right, how about Mr. Chairman Hamm, how about you?
You're muted, Adema. You're muted.
All right.
He's muted.
All right, Chairman Hamm, how about you?
There you go.
All right. Revolution will not be televised. All right, cool. And widely seen as one of the founders of hip hop, right? What modern day, what we call hip hop. So thank you so much for coming out. We got to get you back on and individually. I love these discussions that talk about what real cultural foundations are. I don't know how you could have a course on Africana Studies, Black Studies, African American History, African American Studies, and not study Amiri Baraka, and that's criminal. Right. So, thank you.
Great
Thank you.
session. I appreciate all of you. And Ngoma, I may have some work for you, each of you, in a minute. I'll reach out to you individually on that.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right,
He's
Joe.
the blackest of all.
Yes, I know that's right.
And thank you. We will definitely have to have all of you return, and if even just for a music session, so you could break down all of those things, that would be great. Thank you.
Peace.
Great.
All right.
Peace.
All right. Take care.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now this
Okay.
session is gonna be rather heavy too, right? We don't tread lightly at all politics or local. I'm very proud of this young warrior woman. Glad to have her back in the meeting. Huh?
Why you say young?
Because you're younger than us.
Because we old.
Yeah. You better. Then there's gonna come a time when you ain't gonna be young no more. I'm gonna tell you. Even if it's around the corner, you better hold on for as long as you can. But Karen Thompson, who's been in this community heavy, in this state heavy once upon a time as an ACLU a couple of years ago, attorney of the year, scaring folks a proud agitator, right? Who most recently has joined another very important, and I would dare say, under-acknowledged battlefront, even though it's right in our faces, right? In this particular critical time, coming at half of the population and more than half of the Black population, and that is the question of reproductive rights so under attack. And I'm going to use some language to try and shape this conversation that we haven't used, but I think it's germane to the work that Karen does and brings to this conversation. I've spent my entire adult life, over 40 years, addressing the question of political repression, calling for the release of political prisoners in this country who have been targeted by our country. But this wave of assaults on reproductive rights, and I want to apologize to every woman who's within the earshot of this conversation. I apologize that we weren't able to hold a line on Roe v. Wade, right? And I'm heartbroken that we are in this space where your lives are literally on the line. Karen was on Democracy Now!, and the segment was called People Are Going to Die, as a consequence of what I'm calling medical repression, because doctors are threatened with jail time for doing what doctors are supposed to do: treat people who are ill and save people's lives when they're at the threshold of life and death. Karen, how did we get here?
Well, the thing is that we have to start by acknowledging that this did not start with Roe v. Wade, and it did not start with the end of Roe v. Wade. And to get to that, let me just explain a little bit about this world. So we talk about reproductive rights, but what we really should be talking about is reproductive justice. And that is actually an idea that was created by an organization called Sister Song, which was a collection of Black women who got together after an international conference on population and development in Cairo, Egypt in 1994. And after that conference, they recognized that the women's rights movement, the traditional movement that was really led and represented middle class or wealthy white women, couldn't defend the needs of women of color and other marginalized women. So they took it upon themselves to define what would fit them. And they called that reproductive justice. And what reproductive justice is that it is a human right to be able to have children. It is a human right to not have children. And it is also a human right to be able to raise those children in safety and with all the things that they need. So that's the framework that my organization takes on. And Pregnancy Justice fights the criminalization of people because of their pregnancies or their pregnancy outcomes. And so when you talk about that, which is not just about abortion, but is about the entire scheme of what it means to be pregnant and to give birth, and all of the same systems of power that we see everywhere else. So criminalization, police involvement, violence of the state, all of those things have been happening, and they've been happening to Black and brown women, specifically within the context of pregnancy. And so I believe that abortion should be available. We should not be fighting it this way. It is healthcare, and it should be treated as healthcare. And even if it's not healthcare, if it's a choice, it should be treated as a choice, and people should have that option because it's their bodies. But we also, in these conversations, need to have these bigger conversations about what it means to have your own birth invaded by the government, what it means to have your pregnancy not given the health care that it requires. And, I was on Democracy Now! I said people are going to die. That was 3.5 months ago. And now we now know that when I filmed that, people had already died. Amber Thurman had died in Georgia because she was not given the abortion health care that she needed to save her life. And not only did that happen, but this poor woman, over 20 hours, her organs were failing for 20 hours in the hospital, and she did not get the care she needed. And now there's a 6-year-old child without his mother. So these issues they're overlapping with all of the other issues that affect our communities. And the sad thing is the only thing that Dobbs did is speed it up and made it worse and brought it out to larger groups of people. I mean, it's a mess, and I feel like we're not talking about the torture of it. You know what I mean? That's the part that I think gets left behind.
We have.
Go ahead, Jonathan. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We know that people have already died, right? How much worse is it than we already know? Like you have like the stories of I believe 2 deaths that have been reported. I believe both were Black women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of seems like this compounds the types of lack of medical equality that exist already, right?
Yeah.
Because it almost is like we're not going to take a chance for you where we might take a chance for somebody else, right? Because the ways in which it is described that they died is slow torture and not receiving medical care that they could rightly receive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody, and as usual, nobody's going to jail for it, right? Nobody's culpable, right?
Except maybe the
probably
doctors. That's the crazy part. The
Said what?
doctors go to jail. The doctors who are supposed to be providing that health care are facing criminal charges. They're facing getting their licenses revoked in some of these total ban states for giving that health care. So the funny thing about it is, women.
Hold up, wait. So what you're telling me is the doctors who let 2 women die, no repercussions. The ones who actually gave life-saving care, they're facing criminal charges.
We have not seen a case of that yet, but the laws in some of these total ban states that kicked in when Dobbs came into being, those doctors are facing criminal charges. So in Texas, in Louisiana, in Mississippi, in Georgia, if a doctor gives a woman an abortion that she needs, and the district attorney or prosecutor does not think that she was close enough to death, or if they don't think that it was necessary because the fetus was more important than the woman's life, then that doctor is facing criminal charges.
That is medical repression. That's what I'm talking about with medical repression.
And you got to layer that on top of the fact that we're talking about places that are maternal healthcare deserts. Crystal's Charlie, y'all know her. She's done the work.
That's my niece. That's my first niece.
Exactly.
She's been on these airwaves.
She's been doing the work for years. And, I had her come in to talk to my staff because the problem is this isn't just a South thing. This isn't just a red state thing. Wherever there's a maternal mortality healthcare desert, wherever people are not getting the care that they need before they get up to giving birth, you're going to see problems. right? If they're not getting care. But in those states where you are having these bans that are so wide, they're so broad, if you're not getting the healthcare you need because you're living in a maternal mortality desert where there's no hospital, where there's no OBGYN, you're having issues with your pregnancy, you're more likely to have a hard delivery, right? And if the answer to that hard delivery is that you need to have an abortion, they can't get that care. So you're going to see more and more Black women and brown women not having the care they need to begin with, but then getting to this place where they need the abortion and then they can't get it there. And that's where people lose their lives. It's in that space right there.
Sister Amaku said, no women across the board are suffering. Stories of white women dying and suffering have been in the news. When we're looking at this right now, women are the majority of the electorate, right? Like in even these red states, women are the majority of the electorate. How quickly do you think that this is going to be solved by women just rising up at the ballot box and going hell no? Because every place, even in red states where it's been on the ballot, like white women have been like, nah, nah. Like, I'll tell my husband one thing, right? I'll tell him one thing, but when I get in this ballot box, right? When I get in this ballot box, nah, it ain't gonna happen, right? So, do you think that this is a problem that's going to be solved quickly, or at least quick in terms of electorally, or do you think this is part of something deeper?
Oh, it's something deeper. It's always been something deeper. And I mean, let's just go all the way back, because here's the truth about reproductive justice. We live in a country where for 300 years, the basis of America's labor force, the basis of America's wealth, depended on slave labor. And in 1808, the Congress passed a law that ended the importation of slaves into the United States. So what that meant is that labor force could no longer come from Africa. It had to come from within the United States. And we know this now because we literally have DNA testing that shows it. The number of births in the United States of Black people skyrocketed. And the DNA shows us that the skyrocket there wasn't coming from other Black men. Okay, it was coming from white men. So there was a huge amount of rape. There was a huge amount of sexual violence to ensure that this labor force would stay full. Okay, so when we're talking about questions about reproductive justice and where it came from, so much of this is about the sexual violence of slavery that is now spilled over into the other things. And I'm not saying that they are the same thing as what's going on now, but
there's a continuum.
Those are the roots. Those are the roots, right? And so I have a quote that I've just been saying a lot lately because it blew my mind when I first read it. But Theodore Roosevelt wrote his memoirs in 1906. And in those memoirs, and this is at the beginning of this whole get the West, get the land in the West, he said, the battle of the races is a battle of the cradle. And in that battle, we are going to need breeders and warriors. Okay. So when we talk about reproductive justice, it is about control. It is about expanding or fighting this control over people's bodies. It is about making sure that white supremacy has its warriors and its breeders. And it's also about forcing the bodies of Black women to become vessels for this labor idea. And what we know now is labor is about mass incarceration, and it's about all of these other things. When I went into pregnancy justice, I've been in criminal defense world for a long time, but these issues, they're all the same. They're all the same. If you made the little Venn diagram and put it together, they'd be a full circle because all of the issues are all implicated in the same thing. So when you ask me, is it going to be solved at the ballot box? I don't think it's going to be solved at the ballot box in some ways because it's going to be pushed back. It's going to be slowed down. But the ultimate thing, which is to keep bolstering white supremacy, that's going to continue on. And we've been voting to end this in policing. We've been voting to end all these things, and it doesn't help. Y'all just went through a whole battle on Oprah that people wanted, and it's gone. Right?
Overwhelmingly wanted, It got sold out. Absolutely.
Exactly. So like people can vote all they
That's
want.
the Jersey Democrats. That's right.
There will always be people who vote against their interests. But we also are seeing all this undermining of democracy through people who are voting to defend their reproductive justice rights. So in Nebraska, for instance, it's on the ballot to protect abortion in the Nebraska Constitution. What happened? The far right created a similar ballot proposal that is worded in this way that makes it sound like they're pro-choice to confuse the voters. That's undermining democracy, right? So all of these questions, like how do you support the ballot box when people are using the same thing that you're fighting for to undermine it? And then, you know, we're talking about Project 2025 a lot, but if Project 2025 has their way, they want to reintroduce this thing called the Comstock Act, which basically says anything that is lewd or pornographic or whatever. And under that, they're going to put abortion medication. They're going to put all of the things that are needed to provide abortions, literally the tools for it, right? So you don't even
that goes back how far?
1857.
And it's interesting because like some people might be like, oh wow, you know, like white people just want to breed, right? They just want to as numbers. How do you get that, right? And then you get like on Fox News when they're talking about replacement theory, and when they're talking about they will not replace us, right? And when you talk about that, you know, in 2040, United States is going to be majority non-white, and how this is a real thing, right? Like this is the thing that has been talked about. Like it's almost like they're dog whistles when he talks about these immigrants have bad genes, right?
Yes.
Like, and so it's kind of like, yo, like it seems so outrageous that like in 2020, like you're like white people are scared that they're going to be outnumbered, and it's like, you know, Francis Cresswell sings "Fear of a Black Planet," right? But when you looked at the turn of the century stuff that you were talking about, right? That origin of political science in the United States starts to come from having to try to figure out how are white people going to dominate the rest of the world, right? And how they're going to treat the. I mean, there were some great books talking about how the rest of the world that the academics and the politicians wanted to treat the rest of the world like the American South treated black people, right? And as the basis of their foreign policy. And this is how we need to look at it in terms of America being the police, et cetera. But a lot of it is just scared of numbers. They outnumber us. If they outnumber us, they'll kill us. And a lot of it is wanting to control white women's reproductive work because, like, what do you mean you don't want to have a child? We need babies. We need white babies. You're trying to commit white genocide. And it's so crazy. But when you hear like Tucker Carlson literally talking about replacement theory on Fox News, the most listened to, right? And there was and reading articles about the way like the common denominator of the people who invaded the Capitol on 1/6 wasn't that they were from Trump states. It wasn't from state. They weren't from states that Trump won. They were actually from electoral districts that had a declining white population. And they were looked at, and this was in the Atlantic. Gelman, I believe, was the writer who was an award-winning, right, Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, won Pulitzer Prizes, and is talking about very specifically that like the people who are prepared to do violence came from congressional districts that were losing their white population, right? And they mad, and he talked about replacement theory, like that's a thing with these people, right? And so it's like when you're saying that these origins, and you talked about Teddy Roosevelt, and you talked about like this levels of white supremacy that are so crazy, that run so deep, and we see them now, right? We see them in they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, the pets. What kind of whistle is that? It's not even a dog whistle at that point. You're like, look at those dark brown people who are coming in to ruin the gene pool, and we're already gonna be outnumbered. And y'all white women want to have abortions? Oh, kick rocks.
Absolutely. And I was just on a panel with a provider who is telling me, for months, been walking through protesters for months, just having to battle their way through that. And she was like, on January 6th, I got to work. There was nobody in the parking lot. Not a soul in the parking lot. These people have been there every day for months before that. There's a real overlap there for the reasons that you're saying, and many more. But we're in a real moment right now, and this is a very telling moment. It's going to be interesting to see what people choose and what is important for them as they start to think about these issues. Because when we're talking about pregnancy criminalization, I keep going back to this, but we aren't just talking about abortion. Because the other thing that's happening is that you might remember Brittany Watts in Ohio.
Right.
She was being criminalized not because she had an abortion, but because she had a miscarriage. So she needed help, went to a doctor. A doctor said, your fetus is dead. It's not viable. It's not going to work. Sorry. And she said, okay, I'm going to go to the hospital. He's like, there's one down the street. She went to the hospital and she sat there for 8 hours and nobody helped her. So she was in pain. So she got up and went home, came back the next day to get help. Nobody helps her. 8 hours later, got up and was like, let me go home. I am in pain. She gets home. She has a miscarriage into her toilet. She's bleeding. And then she goes back to the hospital for the third time. And this time she sits down, she talks to a nurse. The nurse is like, oh, I got you. I'm so sorry this happened to you. And then the nurse called the police. The police went to her house.
Wow.
Went through her pipes in her house, and then charged her with felony disposal of a corpse. A felony. Because she had a miscarriage.
Can't make this up.
That's what we're talking about when we're talking about criminalization of pregnancy. That's what we're talking about.
And as long as they have the tools to be able to do it, right? You would think that in a case like this, there would be sympathy, there would be empathy, right? But if you don't see Black women as human, like because clearly we're dealing with many prosecutors who just don't see us as human, and because there's no way, right? Like, and you're dealing with nurse personnel that don't see us as human.
And
right?
nurse
Like,
practitioners who are acting like police officers when they're supposed to be acting as health, like people who are providing people with health care. And that's not what they're doing.
right. And to be the Karen in that situation, right? Like you literally called the police on a woman who came in telling you she had a miscarriage because you thought that she just tried to kill her baby and have an abort, like when she's been there for days telling you in how much pain she's in. That all kinds of levels of dehumanization took place when this woman's going to a hospital to receive some type of medical care. And so it's like you've given people who are just anti-Black more ammunition to tackle and target Black women specifically.
That's exactly right. And the other thing that we see is that often prosecutors use laws that aren't even meant to be for what they're being charged with. So there is a case, this amazing woman named Amiri Marsh, and she had some issues relating to her pregnancy. And same thing, she kind of unexpectedly gave birth in the middle of the night in her apartment. And she went to get help at the hospital. But when she woke up, there was a police officer there asking her questions. Wow. And the thing is, she gave birth in her toilet, called 911. And do you know they charged her with murder and homicide by child abuse?
Wow.
Right. There was no child. There was no child. There is a stillborn. There is a fetus that was not alive, that had not survived, and they charged her with murder. And part of that is about fetal personhood and this idea that any fetus, it has the exact same rights as you and me. It's like a radical legal doctrine that is starting to move to the center. But when people believe in that fetal personhood, this is the kind of stuff that happens. And the people who are getting charged with these laws that aren't even meant, like a child abuse law is meant to someone who is harming a living child, to use that on someone who just had one of the biggest tragedies of their lives.
Right.
That's, that should shock people. That should make the hair stand up on your neck.
Absolutely.
And that's why when they're talking about in vitro fertilization, because you have to fertilize multiple eggs, right? and you don't give, and some of those eggs get disposed of, right? So if you believe in personhood at the point of conception, the process of in vitro fertilization is impossible. So when people are talking about the way in which the procedures work, and they're like, oh, you're going to try to criminalize people, and now southern states are trying to. It really is. Is it because of this process of, like, and this is a question when people are talking about banning like, because there were a Supreme Court case that, and this is a Supreme Court case that was before Roe v. Wade that kind of established a right to privacy. And what I didn't realize until a few years back is that case was about contraception. It was a case in Connecticut where contraception was actually banned, right? And so the Supreme Court decision was like, you can't ban contraception, but and established a legal right to privacy based on that, and that's the thinking that Roe v. Wade came from. Do you think that when people are scared of, like, whether it's in vitro fertilization, contraception, like all of these things, like these things are about to come back, like this is a thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just released a report on our website about fetal personhood and what it looks like today and where we're seeing it coming up and how it's being used across the country in ways that would actually, I think a lot of people would be surprised about because they don't know what's happening. So, and let me just say, this is not only impacting women. It's not. So in New York, there is a current case right now where a man is being held liable for his girlfriend doing drugs while pregnant. He is being charged for not adequately controlling her and the fetus. Wow. And that's, again, that's fetal personhood principles, that he has some obligation for this fetus in her body and is being held legally responsible for anything that happens to it. If you believe that a fetus, if you believe that a frozen embryo, if you believe that a fertilized egg that's an hour old has the exact same rights as you and me, then anything that happens to that fetus in the 9-month journey between that minute the sperm hit the egg to the minute an actual baby comes into the world, anything that you do that the state doesn't like, that the police officers don't like, that your mother-in-law doesn't like, that your boss didn't appreciate, all of that can become the grounds for some sort of criminal charge. And it's that simple. So, when we talk about these issues, people, like, that's another thing people need to be aware of. This decision in Alabama, that's the bells are ringing, the flags are waving, because if that kind of idea starts to spread throughout the legal world when we're talking about reproductive justice issues, a lot of people are going to be implicated in ways that they didn't think they would have to be.
And that's the decision that people were freaking out about, dealing with in vitro fertilization, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Right.
Because the court there said that all of those embryos that you were talking about, what people are using to get, you need to have more than one for IVF, right? You have to have a lot. And so they're saying every single one of those eggs is an actual human living child. That was their decision.
Same rights. Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, I know we're reaching the end of this segment, but what are some of the things that we need to, like, really, really, like, key in on? And by the way, we're going to have you back as well.
Absolutely.
I would love that. It's always good. It's so good to see you, Papa Saeed. It's been a long time. I feel like a traitor leaving Newark and leaving New Jersey. But my heart. As
long as you fight, baby, it's all good.
Okay. What to do? I mean, vote. That is true. It's still there. It's still there at the box. We still have an option, and you are not safe if you are in a blue state. This is not a blue state, red state thing. It is a rights thing. It is, like I said before, this is not just about repro. It's about democracy. It's about whether or not you want the government involved in your body. It's about whether or not people should get the healthcare that they need. It is about stopping criminalization and mass criminalization. So vote. The other thing that we hope that people will do is look at what's going on in your area, what's happening in your space. Are people getting charged with things because they had miscarriages? Are people who have substance use disorders and are pregnant, are they getting health care, or are they being criminalized? In New Jersey, just this week, the AG filed a suit against Virtua hospitals because they were drug testing people who were pregnant coming in to have their babies. They were drug testing them without their permission. And what was happening is somebody might have had a poppy bagel in the morning for breakfast or a poppy bagel, muffin for lunch. And their drug test was coming up positive for opiates. And immediately you're going to have child intervention. And we know what that does. When you send people in to rip babies away from families, when you start getting foster care systems involved, that all of that stuff, the family policing system is going to tear people apart, right? Mm-hmm. So they're suing to stop that. So that's New Jersey. So
wow.
What's going on in your own state and how all of these issues are kind of rising up. And then check out our website. Go to pregnancyjusticeus.org. We've released reports.
Yeah, I just dropped the report in the chat. Absolutely.
Please read it because you want to know what's going on with fetal personhood. And we just did a new report just tracking criminalization cases in the year since Dobbs. And what we are on track for right now, 200 cases. 200 cases of people being charged in 1 year. And those are just the ones that we did our best to find out about. But there's a lot more I know we didn't know because people take pleas. There's lots of stuff that happens. So be informed, vote, and fight for your rights in all the ways possible.
Yeah. And let us remember one of the most backwards knuckleheads on the Supreme Court is straight out of Jersey pushing all this mess. And Samuel Alito, we need to run that crazy ball out of town in the language of Bob Marley, right? Yeah, so all politics are indeed local, right? The answer right is spiritual. Went to the water to hide my face. The rocks cried out, "No hiding place." You got to stand and fight. That's what you got to do.
Indeed, right? Always, yes.
And you quiet. I got to crack another crackerjack lawyer on this call. He quiet. He's taking it all in. What say you, Ed?
No, I mean, clearly, I think Karen is on it. I think that there should have been a lot more conversation, I think, leading up to this election based around what's really happening on this level. Because I think that the way Karen speaks about it, I think is real clear, right? And that's one of the problems that we've had with Black voters, right? And particularly Black men. I think that it's not, and that was the conversation, John, as you know, we were having with Mitty, and why we thought Baraka should be a surrogate, because the language needs to be very clear. It needs to also be raw, because I think that the way you talk about it is really a way that my spirit can comprehend it.
Right.
It also invokes me to do something about it, because the way everybody else talks about it, right, it doesn't seem like it's about race, right, when it's clearly about race. And that's why we say Baraka is important, because when he talks, he's talking a language that is reaching the very soul of the people who say, oh no, Donald Trump is cool because he let some Black men out of prison. Oh, but hold on a second. Do you understand what's happening around with reproductive justice? What is that? Now, let me explain that to you.
Right.
Let me tell you what side of the fence he's on that. And oh, by the way, do you have a mother? By the way, do you have a sister? By the way, do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a wife? Do you have a daughter? Do you understand Donald Trump is playing in their lives? Do you wait a minute? Hold on a second. No, he's not. No, let me explain that to you. Let me introduce you to Karen, and let her tell it to you in a way you can receive it. See, that's the problem, right? And we're not having these conversations. And I think that and the problem I've got with that, Karen, from a legal perspective, is that the Black preachers who got all these Black women in the church on a Sunday morning should be saying, I need you to go home and I need you to have this conversation with the man you left in bed. And this is the conversation he needs to get. Right? Because the brothers ain't getting on that level. But I guarantee you, if they were hearing you, Karen, the way I heard you, the way my spirit was invoked, wait a minute, even if I was thinking about voting for Donald Trump, ain't no goddamn way. He could be the coolest guy in the world, That ain't gonna happen. Why?
Well, it's
Because I want reproductive justice for my mother. I want reproductive justice for my sisters, my wife, my daughter.
That's right.
That's the
well,
problem with that.
And for yourself. And for yourself.
right.
You know what I mean? Like listen, like that
Yeah.
Amber Thurman left behind a little 6-year-old boy, a little
Right.
6-year-old black boy who now does not have his mother.
That's
Right.
right.
So like it's like
That's the other thing I heard from you.
Right.
Right? I received that. I'm like, oh, hold on a second. I don't have a mother. Right? Look at what's been done. See, and
Right.
and John, that
And
was
that-
the conversation we were having when we said that you've got to take the right surrogates and you've got to put them in front of black people so that we can hear what we need to hear.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we've definitely reached the end of this segment, but we
We didn't
definitely
get
need
we
to
didn't
get you
get to
back on.
Impala. I wanted
We
to
need
get
to
into
get you
that.
back on.
all right.
We got to get you back on.
Right?
Now,
Mhm.
who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual, or group?
You know what? I'm a Diggable Planets girl because I'm a nerd and I love jazz. So I'm
She's a
always
jazz singer, y'all. We gotta have
so
a serious music conversation at
they
some
were
point,
always
Cam. We gotta have
my
a serious music conversation.
they're my
Yeah.
heart. They were my heart and they still are. So Diggable Planets.
Nice, nice, nice.
They got a
Okay,
great song about reproductive justice. So La Femme Fatale. So you got to listen to that if you haven't listened to it.
absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And let's get you back on sooner than later. Let's get you
Anytime.
back on sooner than later.
Whatever you need
Thank
to,
you.
just give me a holler. We got you.
All right. Be well, y'all. Thank you.
All right,
Right on.
take care.
Right on.
Bye.
Right on. Powerful. Powerful. Woo! Lord have mercy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
Hey, Conrad, you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. So, man, so I know we usually go back and forth. Then on an issue we're not going to agree on. But it's something I want to ask you about this time, and that is Eric Adams. Eric Adams is, I know he's a personal friend of yours. You work with him a lot. And what's going on with that? Like he was charged that, because I mean, I could go into like, I mean, it's tied. I can't tell you, more about the Harris Trump thing. Maybe we'll talk about it later this time. But the first thing I want to jump into, and the thing I want to really ask you about is Eric Adams, because you know Eric Adams personally. You work with him. You very much supported his candidacy. Um, what is going on with that? Just give me some. What do you know that we do not?
Well, I don't know much of anything other than what you have probably heard. Uh, the mayor of New York City has been indicted and charged with a number of purported crimes. And as far as I'm concerned, he deserves the presumption of innocence, as we all do if we're arrested. The other issue that I have, and I think Black people need to put this in perspective, when you talk about only two Black mayors in the 400-year history of New York City, and when you look at the way both of them were treated, Mayor Dinkins was treated very poorly. Now, he was in history, the revisionists have said he was the paragon of virtue and he was such a gentleman, had such integrity. Well, how was he treated in his second term?
He actually lowered the crime rates in New York City.
Giuliani led a riot and locked him in City Hall. But I want you to think about this. New York,
Police riot, right?
New York produced political corruption in America. It probably was the author of it. New York is the home of Boss Tweed, Tammany Hall, Jimmy Walker, any number of corrupt mayors. The mafia has done business with New York public officials. And so when they say it's the first mayor ever indicted in the history of New York, we've got to take that with a grain of salt. We've got to keep that in perspective and ask the question, how? How is it possible with all of the political corruption in New York that's legendary. That this is the only mayor. But even if
And
you don't, if that's not an
but
issue for you, I would just say he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, like we all would be, and
now, is
he
there
said he's
anything
gonna fight.
beyond? Is there anything beyond the like? Because what I've heard was that like there was some bribery with the Turkish government, and it seems kind of like like if that's the thing they get you on. Is was there anything outside of that
I
about
haven't
the
heard. I
accused
haven't
bribery of
heard.
the Turkish government?
I haven't heard, and again, I'm just a citizen. Um, I have heard what the government has laid out. Um, it's the issue with the Turkish government. He's supposed to have been lavished with all of these gifts, and starting, mind you, when he was borough president. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know the legality, and I can't make that case. His lawyers will do that, but just from a common sense perspective, they're going back to 2016, saying the Turkish government gave him upgrades on airlines and hotel suites, and the only real so-called quid pro quo that the uh, government has talked about is that he helped get an embassy open and get around some issues with the CTO, certificate of occupancy. And I would venture to say that most mayors, city council people, their job is to facilitate, to help people who start businesses, who build churches and mosques and schools. Their job, I don't think that's uncommon for a mayor to attempt to help facilitate uh, people that are doing good things in their city. So I don't know, I'm not an attorney, so I can't argue the case. I'm not familiar with the case law. But what I am saying is, I know political corruption. Your senator over there was found to have
He had
cash
gold bars, right? Like
cash and
this,
gold bars in the refrigerator, and this doesn't sound anything like that. So,
like
you
you're
know,
talking about Senator Menendez from New Jersey, who
Senator
literally had
Menendez.
gold bars,
Yeah,
like literally
yeah,
like gold
yeah.
bars, right, in his house, and
Right.
was caught
I mean,
on tape. And he was caught on tape negotiating.
right,
Him and his wife were
right.
like caught on tape negotiating, and this was the second case that was against Menendez before he got
Exactly. So this
convicted.
is
It's not
not
the
that
first
kind
case;
of
it was the
right.
second case, and
Th-
of
th-
corruption, and it was so extensive that they literally have him on tape. They have Menendez on tape, and talking and exchanging stuff, and literally had gold bars in his house that came from
exactly.
a foreign nation.
So
So
this
I
doesn't
this
appear to
doesn't
be
seem
that
like it is
kind of
the
situation. So
does not.
I would hate for us to rush to judgment. The press is speculating who would run, and they've mentioned Cuomo, and again, I am convinced that Black people cannot fare well in the metropolitan area without fighting. No matter how mild mannered we are, the media in this market loves to attack Black people. Uh, they love to attack everybody. I mean, that they are an equal opportunity employer, but Black politicians and Black leaders are a particularly tantalizing topic for them. And so I think the mayor is, he's stated, I've known him for almost 40 years. I've never known him to have a criminal orientation. He's a former law enforcement officer. And above all, he's got common sense. And so I'm not sure. I mean, I know Sheena Wright. I
And
know David Banks. These are good people. These are community people. And so, we'll have to see. The process has to play itself out. But I'm just saying, let's
and the,
let's
and the thing of
hold
the
up
thing
before
is,
we decide.
but also the thing is, and the thing that just made like I'm not. No one was accused me of being an Eric Adams fan, right? Like in terms of disagreements, all the other stuff, right? But the ways in which it seems like elected officials have a lot of leeway in how they raise money. You can give a speech, and if you give a speech, they can pay you $200,000 for that speech, right? perfectly legal. You can, like, there's so many different ways that you can, above board, like a lot of senators, they speak, and former governors, current governors, right, they speak, and they get a whole lot of money, right, after they leave office. They go work for lobbying organizations, right, and
Right.
they get paid a lot of money from those lobbying organizations and for positions that they had while in office. So it just seems
Right.
like if you are just mildly sophisticated and have a halfway decent lawyer, there are ways, and just aren't, like, because if money was your thing to make, it seems like there are legal ways, highly legal ways, to raise money, uh, that do not violate federal law, right? And
Well,
it seems
well,
like
and that's the
politicians do
point.
that all the time. Um,
And that's the point. I mean, no one is charging him with any person. No one is. In other words, all we've all we've heard the government say is that he got some upgrades and some hotel suites, and you know, uh,
and
politicians.
campaign money. He got,
Well,
apparently he
well,
was.
well. In
They
terms of,
they said
yes,
campaign money was funneled to him, but
yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a labyrinth of laws. I've run for office twice. When you run for office and take public money, there's there are endless number of ways you can run afoul of those campaign laws, and often they're just campaign violations. You have to pay the money back, or if you have expenses they don't approve of, you have to pay it back. And the mayor is not a novice politician. I mean, he's been in elected office. This is his third career. So he was a state senator for many, many years. So he's not a novice in terms of raising money and campaigning. So again, I believe in Eric Adams. I believe in his integrity. I don't always agree with him in terms of positions that he takes, but I do believe that he's a good man. And I think when you look at the people who were in the race, he was the most realistic and the best candidate. And I think there's no way in snowball's hell you can make me believe that he's the most corrupt mayor in the 400-year history of New York. So I don't
like
understand
when you
how.
have Tammany Hall, you
And
have
this
like
is
an
this
entire
is what I
history
don't
of,
I don't
right.
understand. This is what I don't understand. So, Bill De Blasio and his wife, were criticized for certain X number of millions of dollars that were never verified for a mental health program, and you don't know the truth of that. But the point I'm making is, you can go to every mayor, and there, you'll find controversy, but in lieu of the kind of evidence found in the Menendez case, or the young brother out of DC, Trayon White, where they got him on camera, taking bribes. I mean, you just have to believe and trust that, this brother is
Because
in
let
it
me,
for the right reasons, and I do believe that. So we'll
well,
have to
and let
see.
me get this right.
But I
Like
believe him.
let's say,
I believe him.
like 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 when you're talking about he's accepted luxury like I'm looking at the indictment, and it's like he accepted luxury travel, like travel upgrades, etc., right? And I'm like, don't we have a Supreme Court justice that like got major gifts from white billionaires, right? Like did that just happen or not, right? Like
Well,
is it like
yeah.
I am.
That's one issue, and then every politician I know, they come in office broke, including the last, uh, not the Bushes, because they made their
They
money
had their money,
before,
right,
but the
right, yep.
last, every president from Clinton, Obama, uh, you name it, they come in broke, and they uh, left office enormously wealthy. So, as you said, there are many ways in which public officials in this country enrich themselves, and so again, like I said, I don't have the details. I don't know what the evidence is, but if someone accused you of something, I wouldn't have the evidence, but I would have to say, I know the brother. I don't see that as the brother's heart, or what the brother is in it for. So I'm saying we should be patient. I'm saying why should we
I mean,
rush
even
to Cuomo? I'm
and
sorry.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
I'm looking at the indictment and even some of the things that they're saying. Like, you had straw men from Turkey give to your
Right.
campaign, and in return, you got like what was it? It said you got travel considerations, travel benefits from a Turkish airline. Like, are you kidding me? Like you got pushed to elite status to be able to fly Turkish Airlines, and that's what
Yeah.
you're
I mean,
saying is
yeah.
the thing?
It's the mayor of New
Like,
York City.
I'm
I mean,
I'm sorry, man. That's like, at a certain level, I'm actually expected it to be hundreds of thousands of dollars that he got, that he, like, I thought it was like Menendez case, right? Like Menendez,
right,
Menendez, we interviewed Menendez on this program actually, right?
right,
um but gold bars, like when you got gold
right,
bars, like you got gold bars in your house, right? They got you on tape talking to the foreign nationals who are giving you gold bars that you put in your house, right? when when you're doing that, when you and your wife are hustling like that on that level, right? Um, I mean, that's okay. I got you, right? Like, yeah, Menendez, you probably went a little too far with what
yeah,
you
I would
did
say, yeah,
with the gold bars in
I
your
would
house.
say,
But
yes, I would
but
say,
when you're talking about you got an airline upgrade, and
right,
that is the federal crime that you're like, this is,
right,
and you're like, you're the mayor of New York.
right, and this
You will
happened
make
when
a
you,
whole lot
right,
of money just
right,
making
right,
speeches, right? Like, you literally can go from corporations to corporation to corporation and make speeches, and they will pay you an honoraria, and that honoraria can go to you personally, it can go to your account. Like, there are so many different legal ways to make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars as a high profile politician. And senators do it all the time, right? Like, how does a senator who only is a senator have an income of $600,000 a year
right,
when, or makes close to $1 million a year when that's not your salary? So what do
right,
you do? You don't have a side hustle, right? So
right,
a lot of them make speeches different places. So
But
it's one
Jonathan,
of those,
but
yes.
Jonathan, one of the other allegations that were made around money, Brother Conrad,
yes,
was his matching funds, right?
yeah,
They
yeah,
said that he had got up to $10 million, right? And that he was getting matching funds for that straw money. And so that was one of the major
yeah,
sticking points
right.
around.
Well, and
You know,
yeah, there's
what I
I'm sorry.
wanted to ask Brother Conrad is that,
Mhm.
when the governor asked him to clean house, um, and I'm seeing all of these people who are leaving. Are they trying to say that all of these people are the problem? That's what you saying clean. I
Well,
mean, what is, because obviously, I mean, I like the school chancellor. I mean, I got to be honest. I thought, he's
yeah,
probably one of the most talented folks in that game at this particular point. So I mean, when they say that, I'm like, clean house, and are they saying that all of these people who are leaving are really the people that are the problem?
well, yeah. I mean, and the drip drip. I mean, if you listen to the media, first of all, all of these folks have been in some way wrapped up in the investigation. Now, we don't know to any extent if any of these people are even targets of investigations. They've had their phones seized. Uh, you know, Eddie Caban, the police commissioner, resigned, and but you know, other than the allegation that his brother was, I heard a brother say he had a nightclub, and his brother was pressuring him and one other official who got fired, that if they don't pay the police, they would have pressure brought down on his club. And as far as I'm concerned, anyone in the New York City Police Department, any government official that would do that, to a citizen, to an entrepreneur, needs to go to jail. Okay, and absolutely needs to go to jail. But when you talk about David Banks, Sheena Wright, Phil Banks, and others, they're not charged with any crime. The government hasn't even alleged that they've committed a crime. They just took their cell phones. And my point is, you know, there before the grace of God go I. I mean, I don't know of too many black heroes and black officials and black leaders that have not been investigated for some reason or another. And I mean, I'm talking about across many fields. And so, obviously we don't know the facts. We don't know if there were straw donors, meaning, that someone said, I'll give you $200,000, but I'm over the limit. So get 10 people and I'll split it up. That is illegal. Okay. That's against campaign finance laws, but we don't know that was done. That's just an allegation.
Or if that was done by the candidate or somebody who was
And that's the other
overzealous
thing.
and
That's the
stupid,
other
right?
thing. That's
Like,
the other thing. The mayor said he's made it clear to his people, I don't take foreign money. And again, he's not a first time elected official. He's been in politics since the 90s. So this is not a new thing. Running a campaign is not new for him. He was the borough president after he served in the legislature. So I would just say that the best thing that we can do as a people is say, well, a man is innocent until proven guilty. But the drip
and it,
of
and I
officials. Yes, sure.
and I think that if this comes out like a RICO thing, as in they turn people under him, but they have no direct evidence on him, I think that's going to be problematic, right? Because like you literally are empowering somebody who messed up to get a lower sentence for what they did if they flip on the mayor, and it's like I don't know how much he was micromanaging his campaign finance building of someone who did that, right? Like, if they don't have anything from the mayor itself, and I'm glad, fine, you got the cell phones, you got all this other stuff, but they're not releasing stuff, man. Like, they're just saying,
Right.
we think he did X. So I really want to see, like, I
And
really
that's all.
hope
That's
that they
why
got,
yeah. I mean, that's all.
yeah, I
That's
hope they
all we
got
can do
something,
is
right?
wait.
Like
Yeah.
I hope they have something that specifically incriminates Eric Adams. That they're doing this because they've got it in writing, him sending
Well,
a
I
check
hope they don't.
to do it, or
I
some
hope.
right.
I
But
hope they
if
don't.
they're making this right, I get what you're saying.
Right.
But if they're making these charges and they came out this hard, and it's really just going to be on somebody's testimony of he said this. If this is something he said, she said at the end of the day, and they went up with him on this, that would
Well,
be a problem.
yeah, and
But if
that.
they got him, right? Like if it's there, but
Yeah. I
it
mean.
still just
Yeah.
seems, like, because if they got him, then he was really stupid in terms of, or sloppy in terms of, like, why did you that's was totally unnecessary, right? It's beyond imagining why that, because you're smart, you're a politician, you've been in this game for a long time. Why would you make a mistake like that seemingly over and over again,
Right.
right? I can see how you hire people who do stuff. I can't see how you're making a mistake like that when there are so many, when every single politician who is of his stature makes a whole lot of money very legally.
Well, and that's why we can't read into this too much, like saying I hope it, or he shouldn't have done this, or he should have been smart enough. Because let's give this man. Um, we're not giving him any special treatment. I mean, any brother over in Newark that's arrested, that the community comes behind, they'll say, we know our brother. We don't believe that he did it. And so, let's, we should give him the same consideration that we give others. And that is to say that, we haven't seen any evidence yet. And certainly what has been presented is not, there's no smoking gun that I could see. And so, I'm willing to wait. I mean, the man has a right, just like if you or I got arrested, we have a right to continue to live our lives He has the kind of job that you don't have to give it up just because you've been arrested. He's working with the governor. Part of the problem with the drip drip every day of these officials that were resigning and the press playing it as though these were sort of unexpected bombshells to create the hysteria that city government is not working. You have a few commissioners that have resigned who all have deputies. But more importantly, these are folks that the governor and the media has basically said need to go. And for whatever reason, they decided that they wanted to get out of the crosshairs, or the mayor asked them to leave. Uh, you know, these are the things that the media claims that would show responsible leadership, and yet they still attack him. And so, I'm just saying the Black community, should be calm and be insightful. Andrew Cuomo, who's a likely candidate, he left office in a sexual harassment scandal. So, I mean, it would be very interesting. And of course, he was caught up in a scandal with deaths in a nursing home. Now, they just dropped that. But the point is, some of the administrative decisions that he made, there are many who allege that their loved ones died because of that. So I'm saying, why would we get rid of him and be so quick to get rid of the mayor, who's doing a good job, and he's got hard circumstances he's fighting against? No, I'm not willing to join the chorus. Now, there have been several politicians that have done it, the socialists, AOC,
Well,
Brad Lander, but all of them
well,
have something to gain
I,
if he steps down. And so,
well, I think that there's probably a lot of things that deal with New York City politics that crosses it, right?
Hey,
Like, I think that he made a lot of enemies, and that agree. But we are out of time for this
but
segment.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask Carl a question. So, are you saying that Andrew Cuomo is going to run for mayor? He's kind of
well,
Yes.
he's floating the idea.
Yes. Yes.
And
He
again,
is.
a lot of these elected
He's
officials,
absolutely floating the idea.
wow.
they act like they can't live as private citizens. They must have an office. So,
Absolutely
to
floating
me,
the idea.
to me is an awful lot of gall when you just left one office under cloudy circumstances to believe that you can run for another one. But again, that's elected officials, and so we need to just be careful before we judge people and jump to conclusions. The press is not our friend. I've known every
And
Black
Conrad,
person that's been attacked.
Conrad, do you think he should resign?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not, because there's no reason for him to resign. They're alleging he did something. He said he didn't do it, and I love what he said. He said, "This is not the greatest pressure that I've ever faced in my life. I grew up poor and Black and dyslexic in Queens, and had a single mother, and I served on the police force for 20 some odd years. So no, I do not think he should resign. Absolutely not."
I think if he believes he is innocent, he should not resign. If he is,
Neither do I.
if
Neither do I,
if
Conrad. I definitely don't think he should resign. I think he should go to distance, man. Because I think that would put a bad precedent, right?
and I say this as someone who's not a supporter of. I'm a much more of a supporter of AOC than I am of Eric Adams, right? So there's
We
that.
got to do a
But
whole
I'm just
show
saying
about
that,
that, because
yeah. But I know we do those all the time, right? And you wrong a lot, but that's all right.
right.
But when we're talking about this, I just think that, like, the level of charges, would they have, if they got something, they should show something, right? Like, as in, if you had all the cell phones. If you when Menendez came out, you got actually you brought out the gold bullion that was in his house, and you had the conversations with a man on tape going, "Hey man, you give me this gold, I'll give you this stuff," right? Like, you can't get more. Like, come on, man.
Right.
Anybody seeing that is like, "Yo, man, you
Right.
went too far,"
No, that
right?
looks
But this
bad.
is right. they're not bringing it right now, and you have to question as to why. But thank you so
All
much
right. Well,
for
thank
coming
you,
out
and
this week again.
congratulations on your engagement. So
Oh, thank you, thank
I
you.
look I
Shout out
look
to Ashley
forward to
Renee.
I look forward to your political evolution.
It won't be a devolution, brother. I promise you
Well,
that. I won't be. Oh no,
well,
no.
I will be
I won't be. I
listen.
won't be like, oh my God, I should have
I will
supported
be
the
watching.
orange man. Nah, no.
I will be watching.
I would be the first of all. I would be divorced, right? That would not. You do not wish me happiness in my marriage if you
It's
are
like I
wishing
tell my it's
that.
like I
No
tell
way,
my it's like I tell my children when they want to
man.
tell me all the things that I did wrong raising them and that they're going to do differently. And I say to them, well, I tell you what, when you get some children, then we can have a conversation. But I
Fair
can't
enough.
have it
Fair
with
enough.
you while you
Listen,
speculate. But listen, marriage is the greatest thing a man can ever do. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you're very happy. And
I'm extremely
the
happy.
Bible says, when a man findeth a wife, he findeth a good thing. And, I want to leave you by saying to Brother Ed, I listened to the venerable elders and I love them, and I realize their life is not my life and their experiences are not mine. And my views, are different as a result of the different experiences that I've had. I certainly agree with a lot of what they say, but my reality is different. But I did want to say, Ed, you said ministers should be in the pulpit with respect to the issue of the abortion issue or body autonomy. And I want you all to be sensitive to the fact that most black ministers do not and would not support abortion. Now, they would not oppose it in the sense that they would not want anyone to be hurt, but they would not talk about the issue as though it does not include the life of a child. And I think that's what I did not hear in that conversation. I did not hear,
I I
I never hear that
I
when Democrats
I,
discuss the issue.
I think
It's though it's a mere
I
issue of
think
the body
I
and
know
not an issue
you
of the body in the body.
you
Because let me say
you
this:
jumped in.
if a man
You
kills a
had to do it,
woman,
right?
if a
You
man
had to
kills
jump
a
this in
woman,
at the last minute, right?
if a man kills a
Wow,
woman and
Conrad.
she is pregnant, that fetus your guest said is not a life,
Uh,
that man's going to be
I
charged with
I
killing that fetus. So
I think
it's a difficult and complex conversation, and it
I
has to be
I
understood that way.
but I think that the bottom line is, minister, there's a difference between saying that abortion, you believe abortion is a more like a personal decision, and you believe that your personal moral decision needs to have the force of law, and the force of law is what is
Yes,
killing, right? We know
yeah,
that when you're
you
giving
have to at
police and
least include the baby and talk about what
but you
life
can't
means,
be
and you
you,
also have to
you
talk
could do
about
that, you could do that
responsibility.
morally,
When I first got with
you could
Jesse
do that
Jackson in
morally, right?
1984
You're
when
talking
he
about
ran
moral
for president,
questions, not legal ones.
Jesse used to say,
You're talking about moral questions,
he
not
said, I'm
legal ones.
pro-life. And it was a play on words. Obviously he supported a woman's right to
Right to
choose.
choose, because a legal question.
But what I'm not for is us as black people joining in with the radical extreme left and making our people who never looked at this issue as just an issue of the body. Black people have
It's a
never
legal issue.
supported. Black people have
We
never
we,
supported abortions.
we don't support the police in
We've
our
had them,
we don't
but
support the
but
police in our bedrooms.
but every sister, every
We
grandmother.
never supported the police in our bedrooms.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that. But what
As in you go
I've
to
heard
jail, right?
preachers all my life preach responsibility, and that's what Jesse
That's
used
not
to
the
say.
police. That's not the police in your bedroom. Like I got you. But
Well,
that's
the
not the police in
government,
your
I mean,
bedroom.
the courts have already decided that, but I'm saying
Right, but that's
as moral leaders, we've got to, be able to at least talk to young people about what life is. But one thing abortion
all
should
all
not be as a means of birth control.
all
And too often in
I
our
I think
community, it is.
I think
And I thought it
those
was
are
really
these are
interesting because
these are
if
different issues,
white
but we are
supremacy,
but we
what's that?
have we we need to get in this at the
We're
beginning
out
of
of
a
time.
conversation.
Okay, I got
We've
it. But
been out of time. You jumped that in at the end, man. That's no fair.
well,
I was that easy.
you had
I
me
wasn't
on.
gonna
I
talk
listened
about
for
your boy.
you
You
had
weren't
me
gonna
on
talk
hold
about
for
our
2 hours.
girl.
You provided the material. You had me
All
on for
right,
2 hours.
all right, all right, brother. I
All
hear you.
right.
I hear you.
All
But
right.
I do appreciate you. But we do
And
have
I
our guests in
appreciate
the
you
back.
too, and you all. And we don't always agree, but I'm telling you, we need to have conversations in our
We're,
community.
we're,
Black folks need to hear all sides. Have
we'll
a
push
blessed evening.
we'll push that next month, whether your boy wins or my girl wins, then we will
Well,
have the conversation about
yeah.
that, because I'll stand by Harris, right? I stand by Harris.
Well, I
You
heard
can
the
do what you want
brothers
to
say,
do
I
about
heard
that.
the elders say the Republicans and Democrats have sold us out. So
Yeah,
I
but
agree with them.
that's
I agree with them. That's
well,
why
at least that's an evolution. You were like the other person, they sold us out too. At least I got that. I got
I
that.
will
But let's
agree with them. That's why I say it doesn't matter which one we deal with as long as we can get some good deals. So,
nah,
all
okay.
right. No
We'll go
permanent
back to
friends,
that one.
no permanent enemies, just permanent enemies.
Yeah, well, there's some people you shouldn't like give another chance to
Okay.
kill you. All right, talk to you later,
Have
man.
a good evening.
Peace, brother.
You too.
All
Peace.
right.
All right, so we have our next guest on. We have on. Let's see. We have on Mason Lewis, Reverend Marquise Lewis. We had another Reverend on who's a writer and producer, and we have a Howard student who we're getting to conversations with soon, who's a reporter for the. She's a reporter for the Howard newspaper of record, and we're going to be talking to her as well, and she can also join in on our interviews. Welcome, Masoma, to All Politics Are Local. Welcome, Mason Lewis, to All Politics Are Local. Welcome, Reverend Marquise Lewis, to All Politics Are Local. Mason Lewis, you are a young actor. You have been on our show before. We appreciate having you here. Can you tell us about the project that you are working on? There is a play that you are in. Um, Tell us about that play that you are in and when it is and why it's important.
Yeah, so in a play currently about bullying. It shows the effects of bullying. It touches on the subject of bullying, um, and it's just a very touching play. It's it's a lot of things. It shows about how you need to have acceptance and respect for people. The play is going to be taking place tomorrow at I believe 3, or it might be at 5. It's gonna be at Cicely Tyson High School, and I think that's at West Orange. I'm sorry, but the play is just touching. It's a touching subject, and it really just reflects on the subject of bullying. It shows you how, what bullying is, and how you can do better with bullying, because there's a lot of bullying going on in the world and there's not enough people talking about it. So it's really important that we get this message out there. It's a central message. We can send it to kids in Afghanistan, Africa, China, anywhere really. It's a central message. It goes to everyone, not just one person, but to everyone. It's for everyone. So that this message gets out there, that people, they need to know what their child is going through every day when they go to school, and they need to know how they can better educate their students on the signs of bullying and how to stop it. And at my school, we also have um, bullying and intimidation system for students who bully people. We even have a guidance counselor that we could talk to about these things. So there is some schools who really care about people being bullied. Because everyone's being bullied. I mean, everyone.
And so I'm moved by this. I know that you were on our show before and talking about this. I want to bring in Dr. the Dr. Michael Carr, Dr. Pastor Michael Carr, to tell us more about this project and also where is it, when is it?
Thank you for certainly having us this evening. I do apologize for the technical difficulty that I've experienced. There's no point on you all, but is on our end this evening. With regard to certainly that's not cool. Bullies never win. Certainly, it's dear to our heart. It was born because we have been a victim of bullying and the scars that were left and the traumatic experience that we've had. And in just doing some research that I came across, and I found that at one point, New Jersey, we had reduced our numbers in the bullying sector, but post certainly COVID, it seemed that it has escalated, or rather expedited exponentially. And so what happened, we decided that we needed to bring back this particular story through theater, because sometimes when you bring it on a theatrical piece, most people are inclined to really grasp and see what we are actually talking about. And to our youngsters and to our scholars, we need to let them know that it's just not cool. And one of the problems that we found is that during their years of rising, come to find out, because back when number 45, if you will, uh, was in office, the fear and the bullying from the biggest pulpit in the world showed the bullying. And so it was more to that it felt like it was okay to do, but it's not okay. So the story centers around two basic principles: acceptance and, excuse me, acceptance. One is to accept people for where they are and who they are, and the respect of others. We have one of the elements that we deal with is overdose, if you will, for someone that is going through something in the home, which is traumatic experience. And then there's a sexuality of one that is also in the play, as well as poverty. So we covered those three spectrums within the play, but we bring it home to let everyone know that this is not acceptable, and we all must get involved. We know that the HIB, which is the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, it is law, if you will, throughout the schools in New Jersey. It is one of the toughest laws around. But yet, when we did a little bit more digging and research, we saw that the federal and the state numbers did not match. So it led us to believe that perhaps there's something going on, and maybe people just really don't know about this particular program, and that it is mandated that the bullying is not tolerated on any level. So what we want to do is just come together. We want to show our youth, as well as our adults, that has been harassed and bullied on every level, that this is unacceptable behavior, and there has to be some programs really in place on a regular basis, not just sweeping it under the rug, not just saying, oh, kids would just be kids, because one thing leads to another. Anytime it is a continuous behavior and the continuous patterning, it is bullying. No matter what people say, it is bullying. And we need to let them know that it's not cool. And we are grateful for the cast coming together, these young folks, a diverse cast. They have come together to tell their story of how they have overcome, and some that they don't just stand by. If you see something, say something, because we must make a change. So we are grateful to have the opportunity to actually show this piece at Cicely Tyson School of Performing and Fine Arts on tomorrow afternoon. Doors are open at 4. The program will begin at 5. It is only a 70-minute play, if you will. And we are just grateful for the city of Newark opening its doors to us. And so many people
And
have gotten delivered.
Cicely Tyson is in East Orange, right?
East Orange, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, but I know Newark has opened its arms to you as well, and
Yes,
so is East Orange. And you said Cicely Tyson School,
yes,
and the doors open at what time?
4 p.m., sir.
4 p.m. Cool. Now, Marquise, you brought this to us. I know that you are proud of your son Mason in this. Why does this piece? Why is this so like beside the obvious, right? Why is this concept of this play so important? Why should people come out to see it?
Well, thank you again, Johnson, and thank you again for having us. This play is very important to me because on so many aspects, everyone know that I was the president of the Board of Education, and one of the first things that I implemented when when I became a board member was our uniform policy. I was a happy co-sponsor of it, and the reason why I was happy to co-sponsor it because I understood that kids was being bullied because of what they were wearing. Um, a lot of kids didn't want to come to school because they didn't have clothes to wear. Our dropout rate in our schools was high, and I made it one of my missions when I became a board member that I was going to help lower the dropout rate in North Public Schools. So bullying was the IB policy was one of the policies that helped drive our initiative to make sure that our children start to wear uniforms. Um, a concept that came from Central High School was one of the first schools, public schools that accepted it um, under the leadership of now Mayor Ras Baraka, who was the principal at the time. And not only that, I lost so many people. Over the years because of acceptance. People, they was afraid of what people might think of them because they were different, because their
Mm.
sexuality was different, or because they looked different. And this play shines a light on them people. So when I see this play, it's not just about my son being one of the stars or Pastor Carr asking me to be a part of this team, but it's about them people who, over the years, classmates who I've sure died from overdose,
Mm.
or who committed suicide, or who live in depression every day because of acceptance. People not accepting them or respecting them because of the life that they live. So this play is not just a dramatic stage play, but this is a campaign that tell people that bullying is not cool. It's not cool to judge people because we all come from one person. We all come from one God, but He made us differently on purpose, and we have to accept how people were made and the people that they are. We have to respect them at the same time. So this is not just a production, not just a play, but this is a campaign about humanity, telling people that they have to respect people because of who they are and not judge them.
Thank you so much, Reverend Lewis, man. And so I know that we are ending our time for this segment, but two things. First, answer the question that we always ask, like, who's your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group? And finally, let us know really why we need to see this play. I'll start with you,
But John,
Dr. Yes?
John, did we get the young lady in?
Young. Oh no, Masoma is part of a different segment.
Oh,
She is a Howard student who we're going to be talking to, and she'll be telling us some stuff about her. She's also
oh,
going to be one of our one. She's going to be co-hosting with us at times as well. She is a journalist. She's also shout out to Science, one of my former debaters. And you said young lady, like didn't necessarily know who she was before, but she's been behind our scenes in our background, helping to co-produce our show for
Right.
about 2 years. So it's the first time we've actually brought her out to face the world, or maybe the second time we brought her out to face the world. But normally she's behind the scenes. But I'm so proud of her as a Howard student and writing at the Hilltop. But we're going to get into that just in a bit. So, what is the who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group? And then one last thing on seeing this. So, well, Dr. Pastor Michael of the play.
Please don't laugh because I don't even know how to answer that. It's not that I was born holy or John the Baptist, but
What? Not Kanye? He made religious music. It was good, right? Kanye made some good religious music.
I honestly don't. I don't.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Maybe that's why I was bullied.
There's some Christian hip hop too. Wow. There's some Christian hip hop, but in the spirit of not bullying,
Oh,
we
you
will
know
not.
what? That is correct. Back in the day, it was DC Talk.
Okay.
DC
All right.
Talk, right? Correct. And I'm sorry, Reverend Marquis, stop laughing. You know, you put me on.
You can't, but this is like anti-bullying. You can't do it. You can't do it. But you go. I have Reverend Marquis Lewis. You're going second. Who's your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group? Who you rocking with now? And one last thing about this.
You know, mine's Notorious B.I.G. all day, every day.
Okay.
You know, but again, we just want everyone to come out and hear this play. We're trying to take it on the road, because we have to spread this message that bullying's not cool, and we have to accept people for who they are. And respect is something that, you know, everyone should demand at all times. So, and wherever you are, tomorrow, if you are free, come out to Cicely Tyson School in East Orange, New Jersey, 35 Wines Avenue, at 5 o'clock. Come out and enjoy and experience what bullying looked like in live action.
All right. Thank you. And we're going to end with you with our young actor, Mason Lewis.
Yeah, I don't really have a hip hop artist, but for now, I'll just say Tupac.
Okay, all right. So that's cool because if you said the wrong person, then Daddy might have had to have a conversation. So that was safe. That was a good answer, right? Pop, right? You had a documentary, former affiliated with the Black Panthers, conscious, right?
You know,
Controversial, great poet. Well, I mean, man, you know the truth, young man. That's great. That's excellent. That's excellent.
yeah.
Now, one last little question for you. How old are you? What grade are you in?
I'm in 6th grade. I'm currently 11. I'm turning 12 in December.
Okay, so I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm a debate coach, and I think that there's a particular school that you should probably apply to go to, and
Oh,
you
he already
should
going. He
debate.
going to Arts High. He going to Arts High.
Wow!
I just mess with you.
All right.
Listen, he
My
got his
sister
own
and brother
plan.
graduated from our time.
He want to go to science 7th and 8th grade, and he gonna go to Arts High School for high school. So he already got his plan.
All right, that's cool. That's cool because but maybe he debates for me 7th and 8th grade, and maybe he's like, wow, I might want to debate for science in high school.
His
I don't know.
papa champ. His papa champ. So it's in his blood. It's in his blood.
Fair enough. Arts High is an amazing school that has a history of great artists and entertainers. Michael B. Jordan went to Arts High, right? Like there's Sarah Vaughan went to Arts High. I believe John Amos went to, may rest in peace, just passed away. I believe he went to Arts High. Larry Hamm, who was on our show earlier, went to Arts High. My sister went to Arts High. My brother went to Arts High. Right, Tisha Campbell went to Arts High. Jerry Lewis went to Arts High. You said what?
Freddie.
This went to East Orange High School, brother.
Oh, my bad. My bad. He was
Oh yeah,
born
he
in Newark,
did.
though. Born
I
in
meant
Newark.
I ain't want to correct
My
the
bad.
host.
My bad.
I ain't want to correct the host, but
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's not my alma mater, so I got it wrong, right?
I mean, we'll
But
take John Amos. We'll take him too.
that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. So thank you so much for coming out and for coming on, and let us know how it goes. And as always, Marquise, come let us know when you got a story. Come on in, right, man? Because you
And
always
you
have
can't forget the
great stuff.
queen. You can't forget the queen, Amina Baraka, went to Arts High School. I just want
I
to throw that
didn't
on.
know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't forget that.
Okay, all right. Amina Baraka went to Arts High School. Cool. I actually didn't know that. That's cool. All right. Well, way to represent, man. Way to represent. Like, Newark has a really proud tradition of high schools and high school traditions, and a lot of pride in the high school that you went to. If you're from anywhere else in Newark and you meet someone from Newark, one of the first questions they're going to be asked is, "What high school you go to?" So there's that. All right. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. All right. So thank you. Now we're back. We are in our section of hip hop. We have Hakeem Green, who's Newark's ambassador to hip hop. He works with KRS-One. He is brilliant. He has music that is out that I'm sure we will talk about. We also have Masoma Nwosu, who will be joining us for the remainder of the program as well. I just want to feature you first. You write for the Hilltop at Howard. You were part of the mighty. You were a mighty bison, and so congratulations on all that, and entering your sophomore year as a writer. We talk about politics. We talk about and we intensely on the show, and you've done some political reporting recently. You did two things. I remember our students saw our students saw one of your articles in the Hilltop, and then when I saw you the other week, you talked about another article that you were working on. So can you tell me what those two things are?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Masoma Nwosu. I am a sophomore nursing major, lead communications minor from Newark, New Jersey. I went to Science Park High School. And so I am a news and politics writer for the Hilltop, which is one of the first collegiate newspapers in the nation. It is our 100th year. And as my first year as a news and politics writer, the first article I wrote about was the misinformation about when it comes to Republicans or Democrats outreach for people my age, Gen Z. And then my latest article is the Biden-Harris announcement for the 1.3 billion grants for HBCUs, which I got to research people or interview people who work directly at the White House. So I spoke to her name is Applewhite, so Roderica Applewhite, which is the director for the White House and Black News, and talking to her about what the bill is about and its main accomplishments and what it will do for HBCU students specifically. And then the new article that I'm writing about is with Jill Stein, who is a Green Party. Jill Stein, sorry, who is the Green Party candidate for presidency, and talking about what are her initiatives and how she is trying to outreach to students who are particularly at HBCUs. And the big question is talking about because she's someone who her platform is based on the things that Gen Z students like for example, Palestinian and Israel reform, when it comes to healthcare, abortion right, reproductive rights. Why isn't she breaking out into the main stage, for example, Bernie Sanders? And so those are things I talk about in my article that's coming out in the next week.
Okay, so can you give us a little bit ahead on that? Everyone's always going to be mad at the third party candidates. They're going to be like, this is between Trump and Harris, and
Yeah.
Harris got to win. And if you are Bernie Sanders supports Harris, AOC supports Harris. Jill Stein, what are you doing? What's going on with that?
So I think when it comes to like the idea of the Green Party, there's obviously like some stereotypes when it comes to voting for the Green Party, which is like saying that if you vote for the Green Party, you're taking away the vote from the Republicans and Democrats. So students like me should be focusing on the two main stages. And a lot of students that I interviewed who are part of the Green Party basically said, like, one student said that for this election, he is voting for Kamala Harris. And then the other student I talked to said that he was going to be voting for Jill Stein. And so we have like these two divided conversations on campus. So like, who is the person with our like with the tension with our best intention at heart? And for me specifically, I don't have I'm obviously voting for Kamala Harris because like it is the two lesser evils, but that's just the conversation of what the article is talking about, like which one has the best intention. And when it comes to Jill Stein, I'm a little bit more of like on the shaky part of like, I understand that she's someone that is that does have like all the things that our generation wants or are talking about on TikTok, but does she has our best interest? And I think that's what like a lot of like kids my age are coming to terms of, like, who is the person that has the best interest at heart. So
And so it's like more sophisticated than just like vote for the person who wins. What they're saying is like, look, if you want my vote, maybe you'll change your policies, right?
yeah.
Um, so, well, welcome. We definitely appreciate you on that. Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of like what's going on or the excitement, the adventure? Like, apparently Howard is the place to be. Like, you have the best writers there. You
Mhm.
have you have Hannah Nicole Jones, who is there. You have Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is there. Are you just going to go into the journalism school? Uh, like,
Um,
as in, like, are you gonna like, are you there? Are you? Guys, it seems exciting, right? From the outside looking in, a potential president who's a Howard alum. Like, what's the atmosphere and energy like there? And that journalism school question.
yeah. As a nursing major, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with nursing. Obviously, like I'm going to nursing school. I'm probably going to go to law school right after, or after I get, because I want to be an anesthesiologist assistant. So I'm probably might go to law school right after getting my certificate. But when it comes to the atmosphere at Howard University, and touching on my other article that's coming out this week, is like Kamala Harris and Ted Waltz will be coming to Howard for our homecoming. And with the atmosphere, and to answer the question in the chat, are the Gen Z that Howard coming out? Every day on campus, we have a new voting initiative to get students to come out. Like we have we have the UGSA, all like the student organizations are coming out to get students to come out and vote and register to vote. So we have a big initiative for students to vote for Kamala Harris, even though Howard is a nonpartisanship school. So everyone is like coming out to vote, regardless if it's a Green Party, Red Party, or Blue Party. Everyone is coming out to vote. When it comes to the atmosphere on campus, I really like it because like last year, as my first year, I noticed that Howard is like a big school with school spirit. But coming into my second year and having Kamala Harris as the presidency candidate, it's like more booming. There's so much love and so much excitement for someone who was on our campus, who has done so many things on campus and outside of campus, that is now representing us as students. So it's obvious that Howard is the real HU, but like now it's more prominent that Howard is where it's at.
You wanted to say that Howard is really
No,
the
I just
HU,
yeah,
right? You want to say that? You
yeah,
want to say
I
it?
just
You
wanted
can
to
say
say
that.
that. No,
You can say that.
yeah,
John, I got a question for her. I want to ask, with all of the news around Sean Combs, is there any conversation that the students are having around that? As you know, the school gave back $1 million
Don't do that. Lady
of
like
the money. What's
yeah.
happening?
Colin.
So, as someone who obviously works in the place that of the Hilltop, we have had conversations. There has been a team investigation article that came out through the News and Politics division. When it comes to student conversations, there's two sides. Everyone makes a joke about it, like everyone's like diddy 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 and everything, right? But everyone's having the actual important conversation of saying like it is kind of like I wouldn't say disappointing, but is more of like disheartening to hear that someone who was alumni, not particularly alumni because he didn't actually graduate from Harvard, but like an actual alumni who comes back and gives money, that now there's a scholarship that's being taken away from those students that actually need it, but it's also like tainting a really bad light for students who are at Howard, because now everyone, Hampton students and people at HBCUs can't stop talking about like, you have Diddy coming to your school. So we are like very disheartened to hear that he had done these terrible and horrific things to these women and men. But yeah, those are the conversations happening.
Yeah. Alleged to have done them.
Alleged, yes, allegedly.
Can I just say what he's alleged to have done? Every college in America has produced people who have done things just as bad, or if not worse.
Or worse.
Please don't feel the need to carry around bad luggage, because that doesn't belong to Howard. It's a human thing.
Right, and maybe that's just like welcome to like Howard, if it's the HBCU, if it is the Mecca, and then it's going to produce the leaders who do all kinds of things, just like every other great college. There are a lot of people who graduated from Harvard and Yale who people aren't like, we wish they, we won't talk about them, but right, it is what it is. So absolutely. Now, Ed, I'm like, brother, that's cold, man. We're talking about Kamala Harris. We're talking about the pinnacle. We're talking about Ta-Nehisi Coates. We're talking about all these people, and you're like, but Diddy. What?
Listen, hey John, I got to be completely honest with you. When he was on campus and the mayor was on campus, and of course, Mitty was on campus, all of them. I think that everybody, because I also didn't know this. I didn't know that, and we learned this, John, that Mitty was signed to his label. You know what I mean? That was doing production with him.
Right.
You know that. So
right.
found all of that out, and because he had played such a vital role in the 90s, and particularly when we would go down to Howard, right? It's only right, I think, that the students who were there, because Puffy was probably one of the biggest and probably one of the most successful artists to come from the campus, particularly in that era of the 90s, right?
Right.
And so, that because when Mitty tell a story to us, I had no idea, of his level of involvement with production and his album and all of that, and Diddy. And so, because I know what our involvement was with him, John. You know what I mean?
Right.
But on the student level, and then on the activist level, with what April told us about his involvement with Neoforce and all of that. So he was important to the lexicon of the time, but he was important to that campus. And so there's no way that news could come out, and even the students of today, because remember, he got a son who's a rapper, right? Isn't King a rapper? Yeah. So I would think
everybody's a rapper, bro.
When you said that about him.
I like the body language and what he said. He was like, "Oh, everybody." Right.
Rapper is the new word for name. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Wow.
He just remixes his father's music, so I wouldn't say that's like rapping. I would just say that's like. I
heard some spit. I was like, he got bars. He got bars, but
I don't listen to him, so I don't. I just know he just remixes his father's music.
Fair enough. So, question. I know that there's Hakeem. You have Hakeem Green. You have more new music coming out.
I keep music out. I actually got a joint I shared with Brother Zaid. I think Ed got. I sent to all of you actually. It's called Disha, spelled DSYA.
Yes.
And it stands for Don't Sell Your Ass. And it's about Diddy and others. You know what I'm saying? Hang around the cesspool, you're bound to get
you gonna get your good doo-doo.
on. All captivated, caught up in the dance. Trans. Life is like a party and the devil want to dance and you do the hustle. Now you wanna anyway. I'll let y'all hear it. Yeah. This year, don't sell your ass.
I guess that that is unfortunately necessary advice, given
It's needed,
given
man.
what that scandal
People know, man,
was
it's vicious out
about.
there, man.
Right.
You know, exploitation is real.
100%.
So, absolutely. We are. We really do need to start playing more of your music on our show, right? Like we are. We especially because you have the rights to your music. We're gonna start doing that more because, like, so we can play it and not get taken off
Well,
the
can
air,
I ask
which is
you a
good.
favor?
Sure.
Especially since we have this bright young lady from Howard University. I didn't graduate from Howard, but I did party a great deal in my 90s college experiences, and I still head down there. I was hoping to get down to Howard University next week for homecoming. Go Bisons, happy 100. But if you can introduce the young lady to stolen art, I'd appreciate that.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
need her to know
Absolutely.
what's feel over here. 24 hours of peace, love, unity, safely having fun. It's all about real hip hop. Peace, love, unity, and safely having fun. That's hip hop culture.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do that. There's Hakeem Green is the ambassador of hip hop. In Newark, he is responsible for 24 Hours of Peace, originating it, keeping up with it. Like, just there's this passion and love, right? You can see it right behind him, right? And I think it's important. It's important nationally, right? In terms of just putting culture as being something to promote peace, right? And hip hop culture and promoting peace. The thing I really like about Hakeem Green and what he does is he makes a concern. We started the show with Amiri Baraka and a tribute to Amiri Baraka, and one of the first people in the tribute was like culture as a weapon, and I asked him a question about culture as a weapon, right? And the way in which their 24 hours of peace is used culture to push back weapons with the weapons of the mind so that so that people are not killing one another, right? To be able to transform the culture into one that is one of healing and positive and positive love for our community. So definitely appreciate that.
Let's crash the double consciousness.
Well, I learned
Right.
hip hop from me, so pick torch for
Well,
that, brother.
Well, I know we have run out of time.
We didn't ask her what she's listening to, Jeff.
Oh, true. We have run out of time for our program, and we are getting ready to go off the air. But we are going to ask these last questions and give some last words. So first, Masoma, what is it that you are listening to right? Well, first, who's your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group, or who you're just listening to now?
Wait, of all time, like my favorite. My favorite.
She hasn't heard anything you did yet, man. I don't think she heard it
yet. Right now, okay, I can say of all time, I like Drake. Don't come for me for that.
No, we had a thing on bullying. We had a thing on bullying just earlier today, right? And in the spirit of that, nothing. I mean, you like Drake, that's cool. J. Cole just came out and said it's all good. You got it.
She said, wait a minute. She said Drake?
That's brave. Stop it. You can't who we just have on? Marquise Lewis. Mason. That's right.
We're gonna call Rahman Muhammad, because he said every time he come on, he said that's his artist.
That's right. He likes Drake. That's right. Deputy Mayor Rahman Muhammad.
The song "Stolen Art" that I just mentioned, it's on my last album.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Aubrey. That's my middle name.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you gonna trade one Aubrey in? Trust me, I'm telling you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's
bring it to the college campus.
A lot. But right now, I really like Bossman Richie. Y'all probably don't know who that is, but I really like Bossman Richie and his song, his one popular song.
Okay, cool. Bossman Richie. Well, appreciate that. All right, and thank you for coming on. Hopefully, you will be on excuse me, on a much more regular basis.
Mhm.
And Hakeem,
Yes.
we're gonna let first Zaid, Ed, do you have any announcements? Anything you want to say?
Well, of course,
October is Black Panther. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say there's
Go
a
ahead.
rally tomorrow at Essex County College for Kamala Harris with Mayor Baraka tomorrow, and other elected officials that are going to be there.
And Queen Latifah's supposed to be at that?
She's holding
Latifah, yeah, and Tamika Mallory's supposed to be there as well.
I wish I could have been there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I got to work on two fronts tomorrow. I ain't gonna be there. But then two things very quickly. Tomorrow would have been the 26th birthday of Victoria Lee, had not some pig killed her in a mental health crisis while she had a damn water bottle in her hand. We're gonna be in Fort Lee to tomorrow afternoon at 5:30 at the Fort Lee Community Center. And October's Black Panther History Month. I want everybody to remember and keep in mind the health and well-being of one of my teachers, the great Ruba Ben Wahad. We're trying to raise money to help him with his medical needs. As quiet as it kept, valiant warrior that Ruba's fighting a very serious medical condition that he's really been very modest about, right? But he needs some real help, right? He's going to be coming to Seton Hall soon at a gathering on the 17th. He's going to be with us for a few weeks, but we want to make sure we raise some money. I will put the GoFundMe out there in the chat as soon as I can put my hands on it. But Ruba's been one of our most valiant warriors in that tradition, and he needs, it's time to pay back our warriors and to take care of them as they enter their silver years.
We need to get him on before that.
And
they've been trying to.
Okay. And Masoma, you got anything that you want to tell us about? Anything that's going on? Anything you want to hip us to?
Homecoming is coming up, so that's the only thing on my mind. So
as it should be. All right. So Hakeem Green, I'm going to give you the last word, but before I do that, I just want to thank everyone who came on the show. Thank all of our guests who came on for the tribute to Amiri Baraka, and absolutely everybody who's been on the show. Thank you tonight. Also, a shout out to our guests, right? Like to the people who've been listening and chiming in. Right, Trevor Conway. Thanks for your comments, Melinda Buchanan. Thank you for your comments, Consecutive Aspora. Thank you for your comments, Principal Kafile. Always, man, thank you for your comments. Keep them coming. Share what we do. We appreciate that all the time. We appreciate you shouting it out. Also, finally, I'm going to let you end it, Hakeem Green. So, Hakeem.
I got these bars.
All right.
If pimping ain't easy, what is revolution? Rappers be spitting straight noise pollution. Here's a clean glass of water. I'll show you how to eat to live. What goes around comes around. Let me show you how to give. That's something that you hear when the 9 is at your rib. In the street, tuck your jewels. Thugs drew like baby bibs. I try to stay mindful, write something for the kids, talking like I walk it and rap it how I live. I came up blue collar, strive to be a scholar, but I couldn't eat the love and starve without the dollar. The pressure and the stress is enough to make you holler when the landlord's at your doorstep, the devil's on your collar. They call me a slacker because I won't sell crack for the cracker. I call women queens and I love the berry blacker. Some chicks get it twisted. They'd rather be called with they in the air like everybody's supposed to kiss it. It's a simple lesson. You get what you deserve. Is life or just a pimp with a perm? Seeing mommy tricked out made a little heartburn, but it's something she'll forget when it's time to take a turn. When will the children learn? It's much better to earn, but when my brothers put in work, they like to make the metal burn. And up in the system, it's all systematic. Manchurian candidates, waving automatics, a product of a project launched in the 80s. Chemical warfare meant to kill the crack babies. Now as the world turns, is it just a story? Because keeping it real got my sons in purgatory. In between heaven and Hades, like earthquakes in Haiti, the fat lady clears her throat and then plays harp for the babies. They say I'm such a mystic, lyrics something mythic, but I make it so plain with details and specifics. I'm just gifted. I'm young and I'm black. Some represent the game. I represent the fact that God helps those who helps themselves. So when God helps you, it's really helping himself. Make every day have purpose is the science of life. Every breath's another roll is a science to dice. Learn from your mistakes, try to learn from others. You'll get one roll at life, you won't get another. You have to learn the tricks, cause be on the gaff, on some funny business, but that will make you laugh. I thought I had the bread, was a wonder, not the weed. I'm wondering how it's coming back, cause my connector ain't getting beat. Yeah.
Nice.
You don't stop.
All right.
It don't stop.
Until next week.
Nice.
That's jewelry.
But